What's that? What's that? Hey, Milo. What's that? What's that? You look right there. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Oh, I know you hate it when I've got you like this. But you always ask. You're always asking me to do it. Isn't that right? Here we are, streaming. We are streaming, we're streaming, we're streaming today. We're streaming, streaming away. Yes, streaming, we're streaming today. We're streaming today. With my little dog Milo Pants. He's a little dog that likes to dance. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He's my little squeezy dog. You want me to put you down, buddy? You want to put me down? You want to put down? You want me to put you down? No? Okay. Oh. You're just going to sit. You're just going to sit. Well, today's the Milo stream. Apparently. Today's the Milo stream. Good to see you, Led. Good to see you grinning. Hello, Comrade Milo. Should get him a little hat. Little red cap. He hates wearing hats, though. He'll literally just be like, meh. Like, just bat the hat right off. I'm exhausted, honestly. I'm exhausted. I had a crazy weekend. It was beautiful, beautiful weather. Okay. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful weather today, and so everybody came out. And so we usually do like 400 orders. We did like 700 orders. So just like busy. I feel like I haven't had any opportunity to do anything, to be anything, to live anything, to do whatever. Greetings from Fascist America, Cotton. Greetings to you. Make sure the camera's good. Camera looks good. All right, good. I've been moving the camera around a lot, so I want to make sure that it's going good. That guy. Guys, I got to tell you, man, I'm so happy you guys show up. I am. I'm just so happy each and every one of you shows up. I'm amazed every single time. I'm like, I like look around out in the world, and I'm like looking at other streamers and all this kind of stuff, and I think to myself, like, man, these people are so knowledgeable. They're so intelligent. They've got good guests. There's, like, good content. I'm just like, and it makes me feel bad about myself, and I'm like, ugh. And then I hit the stream button, and you guys are here. So I don't 100% understand why, but I really value it. Each and every one of you. I'm really glad that you're here. Because it's just like a tacit admission that you guys think I'm cool. That's all. You guys just think I'm cool. That's nice. What a crazy. I think that the craziest thing that I've seen this week, and the thing that I think I'm going to keep going back to all day today. Where did I put it? Come on. Yeah. Good evening, Anemone. Good to see you. Hitting the hearts. Thank you so much. No. This is easily and by far the craziest thing. I'm just going to turn the sound off on this. So, a group of Chicago teenagers, 1,000 teenagers, have descended on local stores in Chicago, corporate stores specifically. This is a Walmart. This is what Walmart looks like in Chicago right now. The senator from Illinois is actually defending this. He's actually defending this. That's what's interesting. I don't know their gender. I've seen articles that, okay, buddy, I love you too. You're such a good boy. Yes, you are. The governor of Illinois is actually defending this, saying straight out, this is a political protest, acknowledging straight out that the youth of Chicago are being abandoned. And this is what, if you're going to abandon a place, this is what the abandonment looks. They're going to abandon you back. That's what I've been saying. If you abandon people, right, don't be surprised when they abandon you back. And at this stage in the game, like, the people who are acting like this is a problem. It's the black youth, right? The urban youth, as somebody said. Ligand Disease said. It's like you're watching Robin Hood, thinking Robin Hood just needs to follow the rules, right? If those merry men, they just need to obey the law, right? That's all they need. That's all they need, law or order, right? Yeah, they need law and order. This is what the law and order is breeding. This is the result of law and order. This is what your law and order is getting you in Chicago. And my opinion, and I'll be as blunt as I possibly can, great. Like, this is what it's going to look like. Yeah. Walmart, yeah, but exactly. Walmart will just close the store. But the demand for the goods won't go away. Like, this is the thing. What Walmarts do and what they have always done is that they move into areas and kill competition. They kill small distributors. They kill small grocery stores. They kill small owners. They kill small business owners. They do so by essentially subsidizing losses in the area. And then once they monopolize the area, they can raise their prices again, which is exactly what they've done. And so the teens, basically what they're doing is they're going into these stores and they're saying, get out of here. This is the people, this is the youth of Chicago essentially telling Walmart to leave. And I hope it continues. I hope that people across America continue to do this, because what the result of this will be is that small owners will return. Right? Small business owners will return. Local owners will begin to open up establishments and begin to find their footing. Right? Local business, local distributors will be able to actually exist in an environment where Walmart does not. Like, this has always been the most fraudulent part of this conversation, is that the billionaires act as though they matter. Right? The billionaires act as though they're providing this great service. Like, Walmart exists because it was the, I wonder if they took anything? Bro. Like, yeah, they took everything. Like, they took everything. No, I think the reason why the governor is doing that, because the governor understands what would happen if the governor of Chicago, if the governor of Chicago started acting as though, what a terrible thing, law and order, we need to do all this kind of stuff, so on and so forth, blah, 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 they wouldn't be the governor. Right? Like, what have I been saying on this stream all the time, right? That people are becoming ungovernable. They're not listening to authority figures because the authority figures have no credibility whatsoever. No credibility whatsoever. Like 0.000% credibility. Like, we shouldn't believe what they say. We shouldn't acknowledge their authority. We shouldn't acknowledge their laws. Like, there's no reason to bother, right? They have no credibility whatsoever. They're obvious frauds. They're obviously liars. They're obviously totally full of shit. Right? They're not interested in building a stable economy. They're not interested in building community. They're not interested in even the survival of the species. Right? They're not interested in any of this. Right? They're interested in making money for, like, Warren Buffett exclusively. And the Waltons exclusively. Like, that is their only exclusive reason for existing. So they have no credibility whatsoever. And the result of attempting to govern when you have no credibility at all is this. This is the result. And this is what makes the ruling class, this is what makes the ruling class so dim-witted and so fundamentally stupid, right? Is that this like, people can literally just do this, right? This can just happen, right? Like, what are you going to do if 1,000 people roll into your store and just strip it? What are you going to do? And people can do it, and they're beginning to do it. Like, what? So if you don't play ball, if you don't actually acknowledge that reality exists and play ball with reality, then this will happen. We'll strip your stores. We'll strip everything, right? Humans aren't just going to sit by and be like, well, I guess we'll just keep going to work, right? It's not how it's going to work. It's not how it's going to work. And the billionaire class, yeah, and speaking of Galen Weston, the massive, enormous loser that he is, Loblaws names new president and CEO, replacing Galen Weston in top job. Of course, this is strictly, he's still the owner, right? Galen Weston is still like the executive council or whatever his stupid name is, right? So he still owns the place. But it's at least an acknowledgement that people hate this guy, and they're right to hate this guy. I hope his stores get stripped. I hope that thousands of people walk into Loblaw stores and just strip them that way. He deserves it, without a doubt. Power resides where men believes it resides. Varies, Game of Thrones. Yes, there we go. We're going to take our, we're going to do our political critiques from fictional characters. Although but it's true, you know, that's what's funny. That's what made that show so good. Yeah, exactly, Generation Y. I mean, they did just give Galen Weston a raise. They just gave him a raise. And now they're replacing him. Although, straight up, he is still the owner of this company. Right? He's just stepping out of the spotlight because in his arrogance and hubris, he thought that he was going to be able to be the face of Loblaws and everybody was going to love this guy while he drove a dagger into their back. And everybody was going to stand there and be like, oh, wow, I really love Galen Weston when he jacks the prices by 40% and then gaslights me and pretends like he didn't. So he's stepping down as the face of this. There's going to be a new president and a new CEO, but Galen still makes all the money because he's the owner. His daddy gave him an empire, but he ascended the hierarchy.
You know, the thing that people don't understand is that everybody who's rich is smarter than them. And if you just need to work harder for them and sacrifice yourself, and then you'll ascend the hierarchy and be born a billionaire. That's all makes sense. I'm a rational person.
Demand better. Good to see you, bud. And so, I'm constantly going to be going back to this, because this, to me, is, the coolest thing that happened this week, without a doubt. And I'm not going to try to, pretend otherwise. This is awesome. I hope Walmart, I hope Walmart goes bankrupt. I hope that it gets chased out of America. I hope that these treasonous psychopaths have their wealth taxed away and that the Waltons become forgotten. I hope that everybody just looks back on the period of time where Walmart existed and has a little oh, that's gross. Oh, what a gross way that they existed. Yeah, my Walmart has dropped prices 10% in the last month, or at least on what I buy. It's a tacit admission they were gouging, but of course they're gouging. We know they're gouging, right? We should all go through what, this, in my opinion, this is fine. Outright. This is completely fine. This should happen to these people. I'm completely fine with this. And if it happened to my local Loblaws, I'd be good, great. I wouldn't even bat an eye. And of course there are people who are trying to pretend it's a racial issue. I've been responding to TikToks that are trying to pretend like it's a racial issue, right? Because of course, the poorest neighborhoods are black because it's been designed that way on purpose, right? So racists create racist environments to be racist in. It's as simple as that. And I'm just and I'm hoping we're going to see more of this. I'm hoping it's going to spread because you've been abandoned. It's really obvious, right? And people are acting it's shocking that oh no, if we abandon people, they're going to abandon us back. Oh, if it turns out that people aren't going to tolerate it. Yeah, who fucking put that shit together? And it really does beg the question, why do we tolerate these worthless capitalists who are overtly crazed and delusional at this point? They didn't see this shit coming? No, of course they didn't, because they think that they're god kings. They think that they're the coolest people in the world, that they're untouchable. And you can see how childish they are in this conversation that's going on with the CBC, right? if you don't know, the CBC on Twitter, they put state-funded affiliate or something like that on Twitter for the CBC, and the CBC has paused its participation on Twitter over this. And then the response to this from overt sociopath Elon Musk is to change the tag so it says 69% state-funded. So we're being ruled by children. Like, the people who are in power are obviously children. Their defenders are obviously sycophants. And Rob Rousseau has a good take on it. The problem with the government-funded or state-affiliated media argument is that all capitalist-owned press functions as state media, representing different wings of the ownership class, and with a degree of separation from the actual government to make us think we have a free press. Right? So the attack that's going on between the CBC and corporate media and all that kind of stuff, it's just manufactured bullshit. Like, it doesn't matter at all. Doesn't matter fucking at all. I know, buddy. It doesn't matter at all, does it? It doesn't matter at all. Do you want a little scratch? Do you want a little scratch? Huh? You want a little scratch? No, you're scared of that. Dogs don't get tools. They don't understand tools at all. I love this. I love this one. So get out of here. I love this picture. This picture's hilarious. The future is cringe. Yeah. Yeah, just noticed the shirt. Thank you, that guy. I appreciate it. I purposely wore it today specifically. When our parents were growing up, everybody was like, wow, we'll have hover cars and the future will be so amazing and everything will be bright. And now, literally everybody is like, nah, this place is going to turn into a total shithole. This place is turning into a complete and total shithole. That makes sense that a group of people as delusional as the boomers would have a vision of the future that was just as fucking delusional. I still can't see how CBC thinks it can get off saying it isn't state-funded. So Generation Y Me, somebody explained this to me in a way that does actually make it make sense, which is that it's not about the CBC being state-funded, because the truth is that every newspaper that exists in Canada, it has a certain degree of state funding, right? Like the National Post, the most anti-government, we need to cede more power to corporations and you just need to do it yourself group of people. They receive a certain degree of money from the state, right? So why are they not state funded, right? So it's very specifically that Twitter, when they use this state-funded moniker, it's because they define state-funded to be state propaganda. That's what they're intending, and that's what they're doing, right? And so that's the problem I think the CBC has with it, because CBC doesn't view itself as a mouthpiece for Trudeau. Right? And nor should it really. It isn't actually. The relationship doesn't actually work that way. And if it did work that way, I think a lot of people within the CBC would actually have a problem with it. And okay, my man, holy cow. And then you complain. And then you complain. And then you complain. You get everything you want. You get exactly what you asked for. This is exactly what you asked for. And then you complain about it. Dogs, man. This little guy. My understanding is that it's about how Twitter defines what state funding means. It's not about what the reality of being state-funded actually is, right? So, big shocker, delusional sycophant Elon Musk isn't being honest about things. Big fucking surprise, right? Yep. Here in Toronto, it's the same story. Well, I guess you are in Toronto looking to see, but 2 days right after, yeah, it was steaming hot. Like, we were like 25 degrees. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful weather. And now it's snowing. No, I mean, like, things are going to get weirder. The weather's going to get stranger. Everything's going to get more and more ridiculous. Milo, no, you do not do that. People are listening. No, bad. That's bad. Lie down. Lie down. You don't get to do that, buddy. You don't get to do that. No. 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 This guy's a little cartoon character, man. He's just like a little cartoon character. Is he in the frame? He's a bit in the frame. I could get him more in the frame. Check it out. Check it out. Yeah, this show's going to become about John and Milo. We're going to do the John and Milo show. You guys can't even see the top of my head. Doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. The John and Milo podcast hour. He is precious. Milo's anemone. Anemone. How dare you say such a horrible thing about Milo? Milo is not a cop. Milo is not a cop. No. No. Okay, that makes sense. I'm feeling a little worried about you people getting like 30-degree weather so early in the year. Yeah, I'm definitely worried about it. Are you kidding me? I'm like definitely sitting here thinking to myself like, hey, we shouldn't be having that kind of weather here right now. It shouldn't be mid-April, right? It shouldn't be 30 degrees, right? It shouldn't be 25 degrees mid-April. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all, right? And then to me, I think the thing that's so concerning is just the quick up and the quick down. And that it seems as though the up and the down are way more extreme than they used to be. Like, spring is spring, right? Spring is like this, where there's a beautiful day and then a rainy, dreary day, and like there's all this kind of stuff. But the up and the down, the extremity of it, like everything is getting more and more extreme, and it's just getting more and more ridiculous. Conton writes, I'm actually really worried. The coverage isn't accurate, but gun violence in my city is beginning to take on a kind of shape. I got coworkers saying it might be neighborhoods warring with each other. Oh, God. See, but this is, of course. Like, let's bring it all back into this, right? It's not like the news media has a good understanding of what organization or what group of people are actually responsible for this, right? It's not like they're communicating this in a way that has any cohesion. And moreover, it's not like any organization would actually acknowledge their existence, because then they know that they would be hunted by the police and the military, right? So they want to stay secret. They want to keep everything on the DL in the first place. And Milo, people in chat are accusing you of being a cop because you're being so distracting. You are. You're being so distracting. Okay, buddy. Hey, do you need to go in your crate? Do you need to go in your crate? No, you don't. And like, so if this exists, right? Like if this kind of activity exists, then that tells us that people are organizing, and they are organizing in order to achieve goals. And I don't, like, it's like the classic, like the Bloods and the Crips, right? It's like the classic just organizing and warring groups that are finally coming together. Dude, Milo, dude, calm down, man. Holy cow. Holy cow. You're like losing your mind for nothing. Oh, goodness. Multiple gun homicides on the daily, says Conton. Brutal. Brutal, dude. Like, sounds to me like that's a war, right? Sounds to me like that's a war. And like, I really hate to break it to everybody. Like, and I'm trying to be nice about it, but I mean, I'm here to tell the truth. Like, this is what it's going to look like. Like, this is what it's going to look like. It's the ruling class is losing control. If it hasn't already lost control. It's losing control. People are beginning to sweep through giant establishments and destroy this kind of stuff. And it's not going to be too long until local gangs and local cartels and local business owners begin to just try to claim territory and push people out and claim resources for themselves, right? Like, it's going to be classic mafia shit. There's no reason to believe it's going to go any other way, right? Like, there's no reason to believe it's going to go any other way. Last winter, there was a legitimate battle. 600 rounds were fired in a single confrontation. That's incredible. That's incredible. Oh, goodness. And, like, weirdly enough, no one was hurt. Maybe they were just practicing, Cotton. Maybe they were just practicing. And like, this is why we're actually saying, right? Like, as leftists, as communists, we are actually saying with regularity now that we have to find local groups and actually find local support systems and find people who we actually believe are going to provide mutual aid and provide mutual aid with them. Because those organizations are beginning to find themselves what would be called a criminal element by the ruling class that has no legitimacy to call anybody a criminal element in the first place. But these organizations are finding themselves, right? These people are finding themselves. And if you don't, right, then you're going to be swept up in it. You're going to just find yourself in a neighborhood that is ruled by a gang. That's going to happen. And the police are not going to go into that neighborhood because the police no longer exist for the benefit of the citizenry, if they ever did. The police will go live in Cop City, right? That every so often the police will sweep into neighborhoods in order to suppress and oppress. But the new local law and the new local officials will essentially just be the gang, right? Like, and this is essentially what the Bloods and the Crips and all of this, that's what these were, right? Is that local law enforcement had lost control, if they ever had it, and so gangs prop up to provide the service that the police will not. And that is essentially where we are going. And, I mean, and it all ties in, like, fundamentally, it all ties in to the reality that we are sacrificing everything that matters to any degree that it matters. We are completely sacrificing everything to the altar of finance capital. That clean air, clean water, clean food, land that's workable, infrastructure that actually makes sense, even systems that support and sustain life for the next generation are all being ground up into dollar bills. Like, and the youngest generation, the younger generation that's coming up understands it. They know what they're looking at. They're not bullshitting themselves the way that the boomers are. They're not bullshitting themselves like the Petersons. They're not bullshitting themselves. They're not going to be gaslit. They are living this experience and they are seeing what is real and they are seeing what's going on in the world. And they are fighting back against it and they're going to continue fighting back against it. And like, when you've got movements like defund the police and ACAB and you've got all this stuff and then you see what the Biden administration is doing about it, which is fuck all, right? Like, it's only a matter of time until these sorts of organizations begin to crop up. It's only a matter of time until true revolutionary movements begin to show up. Milo, bud, I'm going to put you in your crate, dude. Do you need to go in your crate? I don't understand, man. You're, like, really losing your mind right now. Oh, you just want pets. this? You hearing this? It's like the worst show I've ever done because of you, Milo. You understand? It's like the worst show I've ever done because of you. You're just being very, very distracting and very, very obnoxious. What a cartoon character, man. I hope everybody will be okay. I hope Cotton will be okay. Right? And here's a sentiment that I'm seeing. Right? I'm just going to read this. This is the part the billionaires don't get. There is no retirement, fucker. I watched my parents save and claw their entire lives just to wind up having to live in my house. Which honestly is very nice. But still, this whole bullshit dream they pitched people is total garbage. If I have to work until I die anyway, I might as well throw my whole savings at burning down the clown show that enables people like Kenny and Gabe and Stevie to be the pricks they are. Fuck this place. Fuck Wall Street. I just want to watch it all burn down. I don't give a fuck about infinite pools and getting rich. I don't give a fuck about any of it. I want to watch this whole thing implode. I want to watch yachts sink and become reefs. I want to watch Lambos overtaken by nature with trees growing out of the windows. I'm so fucking fed up with this bullshit clown show with fake politician puppets and fake pundits on TV telling people it's all, oh, fuck all this shit forever. Edit to add, we aren't dirt. We are the universe, become conscious of itself, and every last one of us is a beautiful expression of the whole. If you need a boost and you feel like dirt, message me. I'll pull you out of the sad hole you're down in, my friend. It's a very kind sentiment of this gentleman. But it's absolutely the truth. Like, none of this, like, the society that exists around us is false. It's fake. It's designed by psychopaths in order to continue allowing them to exert their power and authority into the world, and they have no authority. The system has no credibility. The society that they are erecting around us has there's no laws. There's nothing valid here. Like the Constitution was written by slaveholders. People who literally owned people to be sex slaves. People who walked from coast to coast, massacring people wherever they went and stealing the resources of the land. That's who wrote your Constitution. It has no validity. It has no credibility. Those that worship it are death cultists. And it's really gotten quite clear that that's the case. It's gotten really quite clear that the people who are defending this system are no longer capable of rational thought, if they ever were in the first place. That I'm having routine daily conversations now with people that I can only describe as overwhelmingly, despicably delusional. Like, I had a conversation with somebody. This is a real thing that happened to me just the other day. I'm talking to someone on TikTok, in the TikTok comments, right? And he was a hyper individualist. Take responsibility. You're just trying to blame other people. And it's like, so, and I said to him, you sound like somebody who blames a rape victim for wearing revealing clothing. And this fellow went on to say that well, yeah, if a woman is wearing revealing clothing, she needs to take responsibility for that. And so I immediately just understood in that moment, like, oh, this guy thinks it's okay to rape women. Like, and that's essentially what we are dealing with now. That these people actually think it's okay to rape people. Like, these people think it's okay to steal from people. These people think it's okay to murder people. They think it's fine, right? That there is, like, a litmus, that there is a level. There is a moment when it's completely justifiable to just shoot someone and take their stuff, right? They were asking for it. Is a completely rational thing for the defenders of capital and the defenders of the capitalist class. This is actually something that they believe because they're psychopaths, right? That like, whatever they think is acceptable means that they get to rape people and shoot them and steal their stuff. Like, this is actually how they think. This is actually what they are saying. This is actually who they are. So I'll say it over and over and over again, right? This is fine. Like, this is fine. Like, these people are genocidal, psychopathic, mass murdering rapists. Their laws don't matter. You don't need to follow them. There's no credibility or validity. They literally think that they should be able to kill you if they want. So this is completely fine. Cotton says, my boomer mother worked her whole life since she was a teen. She has to live with my aunt, and if she were on her own in retirement, she would be summarily fucked. Yeah. Look, there's like, do you think that these like kids that are coming up, looking around the world around them, seeing the abandonment of the elderly, seeing the abandonment of the poor, seeing the abandonment of the disabled, seeing the abandonment of the working class generally, right? Seeing 40-year-old people like myself. Like, I work a full-time job and I do this, right? I work a full-time job and guess what? I'm never going to have a fucking house, right? And it's getting to the point now where even the like, oh, just get a better job crowd, that those sycophantic losers walking around saying just get a better job. Well, okay, well now it's doctors and lawyers and engineers. And now ChatGPT is coming in. It's going to obliterate all those jobs too. Until finally there's going to be nothing left. And these guys are just going to be like, just get a better job! Just get a better job! At the end, and there just comes a point where we have to actually say, oh, these people are psychopaths. Like, they're actually gaslighting psychopaths who understand and know what they're doing, right? It's not foolishness. They understand and know full well what they're doing. Like, this in my view, is the cultural shift that we have to take. Is that the people who are defending capitalism and the people who are gaslighting us, right? It's not that they need to be enlightened or that we're having a small disagreement or any of this. They know full well what they're doing. They know full well what they're doing. And they are psychopaths who are doing it on purpose, right? They play dumb in front of cameras, but behind the scenes, they happily treat us like cattle. And every so often, there are little things that slip through. Right? You can see it when Shapiro gets together with his little Nazi buddies and they all talk to one another. There are little moments where it slips through and cracks through the window, right? Where one of them goes just a little too far. And then the rest of them are just like, oh, come on. But you know, if the camera wasn't there, they would all just be like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, if we don't colonize everyone, how can we bring freedom? Oh, I saw someone make a comment that the USA should have colonized Afghanistan. Just unapologetic colonizer brain. Yeah, my favorite is because like that's always worked, right? Yeah, colonizing all of these nations has always worked, right? Certainly didn't collapse the British Empire. It's certainly not failing the French Empire. It's certainly not failing the American Empire, right? Colonizing other nations has always worked, right? Like this whole thing. Like, America is so fucking fake. It's the fakest thing that's ever existed. Like, it's literally white European slavers and genocidal maniacs putting a name on a piece of land that they don't own. Like, yeah, shitload of people agreed with them. Like, as if it would be possible to do. Right? As if it would be possible to do. And, like, can you imagine even trying? Like, can you imagine even trying? Like, the right loves to act obtuse and stupid. Yeah, my ex was all about that when they were virulently right-wing. You were sucked into it, feels bad, brutal. The things we do for love. The things we do for love. Right? The silly, ridiculous things we do for love. And the like, it's all they've got now, right? It's all they've got now. It's just this overwhelming, crazed stupidity. Like, I know I said I was going to be nicer about it, but I'm not doing the TikTok stream because I was banned on TikTok for providing evidence. Like, but this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, you're not allowed to provide sources now. Like, it's gotten so bad that you're not even allowed to provide evidence. And now, like, I'm subscribed to right-wing channels, right? I'm subscribed to people on the right, and they're desperately stupid, and they'll provide, but not only are they desperately stupid, there's an industry of stupidity, right? You think about like someone like Jordan Peterson, right? But also there are other people, like Milton Friedman's son is one that I've been seeing a lot of now. Milton Friedman's son, he's also an economist, and he's as big a loser as Milton Friedman ever was, right? And so he gets spread around a lot too. And it's just like, oh, like, so there's a whole cottage industry of stupidity that is designed purposefully to be as unintelligent as possible intentionally, right? This is Steven Crowder. This is Ben Shapiro. This is Jordan Peterson. This is Friedman. This is all of these guys that they all have to play dumb. Because if they actually acknowledged what they really believe, right, which is obviously we should be enslaving these people and we're superior because we're white, obviously. Like, these people are fucking Nazis. That if they were actually to openly acknowledge that, then it would be just war. And they know it. And now they certainly must know it, right? Like, they can't actually say the things that they mean. So what's left? Right? If you can't actually openly discuss what you obviously believe, which is that the white race is the superior race, right? And that we should, and that you're inferior, and if you don't want, like, you listen to Jordan Peterson, once you understand he's a Nazi, right? You listen to his stuff and you realize very quickly, like, oh, this is all, like, just supremacist talk, right? This is all just, like, you need to be better. And the better people are the people who are ruling, and obviously that makes sense because I'm at the top, right? Even though I'm completely disregarded by my entire field and basically illiterate, no one respects me. Like, isn't this the big red flag for all of these guys, that nobody in his own field regards him well at all? Like, isn't that kind of a red flag for for these people? But again, it's just a cottage industry of intentional stupidity because it's all they have left. They can't actually be intelligent. They can't have intelligent discussion. All they can do is be stupid and take up all the oxygen in the room. And then say to people, which they say all the time, well, disprove me. And it's like, I literally can play one game of Monopoly and disprove you. Like, the point is so stupid. But they require all of this evidence and time and because their hope is that they'll just bog you down in this stupid conversation that is meaningless, and they refuse to acknowledge reality in the first place, so the conversation's almost pointless, right? Like, I remember I watched a communist talking to a conservative in Britain. Things have gotten so desperately bad in Britain that they're actually letting the communists on television now, right? Because they're starting to realize, like, oh, if we don't actually let, the majority opinion actually talk, then this is what we're gonna be looking at. And so they're actually letting communists onto British television. And the communists are basically saying, like, yeah, I'm really thinking that maybe I'm not gonna do this anymore because these guys are so stupid. Like, this is so stupid what these people are saying. And they're just saying it. They're just saying, like, this is purposefully, intentionally stupid. Pittsburgh, good to see you, bud. Speaking of fail sons, did you see the Shah of Iran's son is going to Israel to help manufacture consent to regime change the Iranian government? I did not. That's a weird story. Like, that's a very weird story. Like, I understand why. Or the Shah of Iran. Oh, so the Shah, like the fellow that worked with, yeah, classic CIA grifting, right? Classic CIA stuff. Didn't I hear that Walmart was closing all the stores in Chicago? Are they? I wonder if that's true. I don't know anything about that. Let me take a look. Are Chicago Walmarts closing? They're closing half the stores. which was a reversal of the retail giant's high-profile commitment in 2020 to expand in the city as part of its corporate racial justice initiative in the wake of George Floyd's murder by police. So this is actually connected to the George Floyd protests, pretty straightforwardly, right? So essentially Walmart's full of shit, right? Essentially. Like, oh, big surprise, corporate liars are liars. Who knew, right? That major psychopaths and sociopaths will lie to you. Who knew, right? That they don't care about anything. They don't care about wealth they don't care about the success of the populace. They don't care about anything, right? They care about money for themselves, and they'll say whatever they need to say in order to get people to stop rioting and calm down, right? But push comes to shove, and chances are good that Walmart looked at this and thought to itself, like, yeah, so we'll have some looting, but oh well. Milo, dude. Yeah, you're gonna stay like this, buddy, because you're losing your little mind right now. Stay. A cottage industry of acting like Trudeau is going after you personally. Like, I saw people saying it was Trudeau causing the Psychiatry Association to make Peterson do retraining. Yeah, right? Like, this kind of, like, hysteria. Like, imagine Trudeau giving a shit about a loser like Peterson, right? Like as if Trudeau doesn't have better things to do with his time. Like, and imagine Peterson is so influential that, like, this would actually make Peterson as important as the Prime Minister of Canada in the mind of the person who believes it. Which you just got to be a complete dunder to think that this is the case. Like, just straight up, like, brain off, not thinking at all. Like, not even critically. Just, like, literally NPC brain. Just wake up, go to work, come home, I work hard, Trudeau's a problem. Oh, you hear what Trudeau did? Trudeau. Like, and what's scary is that it's working, right? That's what's scary, is that it's completely working. And we're going to end up with a prime minister who's essentially just a yes man for corporations. And the people who are voting for Conservative are like, we're going to take Canada back and Canada will be better and everything. It's like, what are you talking about? When has a Conservative ever made anything better for anyone at any point ever? Like, name one time. Like, literally one time. You got to go back to, like, the 60s, when there were, like, red Tories, when the Conservative government was actually like, no, we should do stuff for people that helps. You know, like, yeah, like, we're Conservatives, but we still believe that people should be taken care of. Like, modern day conservatism is basically just burn everything down for money. That's the bottom line. Like, they don't care about their Bible. They don't care about the they don't care about their constitutions. They don't care about the law. They don't care about tradition, right? They don't care about the classical music and, oh, we've got to protect Western civilization. They don't give a shit about any of that. 0% fucks. It's all a grift. It's all completely a fucking grift. They care about money exclusively, bottom line. And if it makes them a penny, they will betray everyone, right? They're going to do a Mark Zuckerberg, and they're going to cut their family, their friends out of the deal, right? That's modern day conservatism. So this idea that like some working class schlubs, some like construction worker guys, like, oh, we're going to get rid of Trudeau and Polyev will come in and he'll make Canada great again. It's so delusional. It's just overwhelming delusion. And the serious question that we really need to be asking, and I've said it so many times, right? I've said it so many times. What kind of ethos? How did we get to the point where people were so willing to betray their children like this? Like, and it's an overwhelming betrayal, no doubt. Like, we have a boomer generation, right? We've got a boomer generation that is overwhelmingly betraying their children. And betrayal is the only word left to use. Like it's not a disagreement, right? It's none of that. It's literally boomers like eviscerating the future for their own children for nothing, near as I can tell, for nothing. And how did we get here? How did we get here? What happened? Like, what happened? Because this kind of stuff is going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's not getting better. Like, it's going to get worse. It's going to get more extravagant. It's going to get more organized, right? There's going to be, like, people are going to have name recognition. You think about someone like El Chapo, for example, in Mexico, right? Well, wait until we've got El Chapo. Wait until we've got people who are just roving bands going around. And he'll have a name like Von Tigra or something, right? Or like in Canada, it'll probably be like the Gretzky brothers or something dumb, right? The proud North, the North Proud, right? And it'll literally just be like a band of these truckers. It'll be these truckers going around like pilfering gas and acting like Bonnie and Clyde, like and the only response that the ruling class actually has is to continue the destruction of the civil society, continue the destruction of the civil society, and then take any money that they make pilfering the civil society and give it to cops, right? And expand a police base and expand that kind of thing, as if that's going to work. Iran wanted to socialize the oil like Norway or Alaska. Instead, they got couped by the CIA and MI6. Yeah. God, I hope the world stops using the US dollar for trade. More renminbi, euros, maybe BRICS, new currency. So part of the interesting thing that I've been seeing about that very thing is that the BRICS nations and these people, well, I mean, you have Venezuela, Lula openly saying, why are we trading on the dollar? Like, Lula is openly saying, why are we trading on the dollar? But there is a concern within the BRICS organizations that, like, a sudden decline of the dollar will mean war. Like, they're not dumb. They understand that. And so there's a couple of nations that are also saying, like, hey, like, we don't want to plunge this into a war. Like, the Americans are crazy. Like, they're going to go to war if we do this, if this happens. And then there's also other factors in this conversation that I've been seeing. Because it's gotten so obvious that the hegemony of the dollar is becoming a threat that people are actually starting to talk about it now. And one of the pushback things that I've heard on it that actually has a little bit of traction, I think, is that China doesn't want, like, dominance, right? Like, there's no nation. Like, America wants dollar hegemony. It wants dollar hegemony. Like, that's one of its stated goals. That's an agenda for it. It's not sitting here being like, oh, we just happen to have it, right? It wants it. It pursues it. It thinks that the pursuing of dollar hegemony is good for the world. All this kind of white supremacist nonsense that you hear. And the Fiddle Ford's catalog, I didn't actually say hello to you. Glad you're here, bud. Good to see you. And the yeah, let's stick with this one. And but China doesn't actually want, like, yuan hegemony. It's not sitting there going, the yuan is going to be the currency of the world, right? Like, it's not sitting there. No, the Russians aren't sitting there saying the ruble will be the one true currency. None of the BRICS and none of these organizations are actually pushing and fighting in order to try to make the dollar a hegemonic power. And people will point out quickly that, like, there's still more trade happening on the dollar. And the one fact that is actually true, there's more trade on the Swiss franc than there is on the Chinese yuan, right? And that's largely because the Chinese are not sitting there going, you've got to trade on the yuan. Push for a trade on the yuan. But you got to trade on the yuan. Everything's got to be done on the yuan. But I do think that there still is going to be a decline of the dollar generally. because people are going to start trading off of the dollar. People are talking about trading off of the dollar. You've got, for goodness sakes, like Lula, president of Venezuela, saying, like, why are we trading on the dollar? You've got African nations saying, like, we should get rid of the dollar. Like, why are we trading on the dollar? And I just think there's a force of momentum. There's a momentum that can happen where it's not going to take a lot. It's not going to take, like, an entire switch. Like, it's not going to be the entire world just no longer trading on the dollar, right? It's going to be that the dollar is no longer seen as the only option. And that by itself is going to plunge the value of the dollar, which is going to cause a ton of problems. CR Who? Don't know if I've ever seen you here before, bud. Good to see you. Chrystia Freeland did more damage to the world than anyone else in current politics. Canada had peace work to do, but there was no way to do it. Yeah, with a Ukro-Nazi in the way. Raytheon, Cargill, Bayer, BlackRock all have hundreds of billions tied up in the former Ukraine. When Kiev falls, their deals and deeds are no good. Economy collapses with them. Yeah, that's why they're putting in all this effort, right? It is why they are. It's the same reason why. It's the same reason why America needed to intervene in World War II, right? Like, they can't just have their economy collapse. They'll just lose all of that investment. They'll lose all of that stuff that they've tied in. Milo, why are you whining so much, my man? It was raining all day today, so I wasn't able to get him out for a walk. And so now he's just like a little ball of energy. I think tomorrow you're going to go for a 2-hour walk. Yeah, we're going to walk around for 2 hours straight. Yeah, we are. Oh, wow. And France can save themselves by cutting a deal with Russia and China. Their people are in full revolution mode, and Macron still can't deliver the obvious answer, ending NATO. Well, I mean, a big problem that the European nations are facing is that the way European nations traditionally negotiate with one another pre-NATO was through war. Like, people on the left like to say all the time, oh, just end NATO, right? Well, we got to get rid of NATO. End NATO. And I'm sitting here a little bit saying, really? End NATO, eh? I mean, I understand end NATO because they're going around the world destroying nations that they have no right destroying, right? I understand that. I understand that idea, that we should probably think about why this organization exists and all these sorts of things. But one of the things that NATO is doing that I think is a positive thing is that it's making it so the European nations aren't warring with themselves, which is traditionally what they do and how they actually operate. And fundamentally, I would not celebrate the end of NATO. Like, I really wouldn't. Because to me, the end of NATO means the beginning of a war in Europe. That the Germans and the French and the Spaniards and the Brits and all of these guys, like, this is how these capitalists are going to resolve their conflicts. They're not going to sit there thinking to themselves, they're not going to be rational. They're not going to make rational decisions. They're not going to think like, what can we do for the benefit of our populace? Because that's not what they're thinking now, right? They're thinking, how do we loot the treasury as fast as possible, make sure the populace is looking the other way while we loot the treasury, make sure that everybody is not paying any attention to us as we flee to our own little islands, like our own little Jeffrey Epstein islands. And if the whole thing devolves into chaos and war, oh well, right? Like if some thug from the streets rises up and seizes power, okay, I'll be off on some island somewhere, right? And then the thugs will figure it out. Right, that's what World War II was. Just the thugs figuring it out. Like you had Mussolini and Hitler and Churchill, right? Just the thugs figuring it all out. And it's just how it's going to go. But so, and that is what will happen in Europe should NATO dissolve. The USD won't collapse all that fast. It's like 80% of deals now. It could be 60% in a year, 50% in 2 years. But it shrinks after that much more slowly since you run out of easy triad trades. Yeah, and even shrinking like 10% would be huge, right? Like that's the thing. Like if it's 80% now and it shrinks down to 70%, that's massive. Like that's a massive shift in power in the world. That's enormous. And America has definitely gone to war for less. Has definitely gone to war for less. So like the idea that it's just going to sit on its butt and watch the rest of the world transition away from it and isolate it this way without some kind of major conflagration, I don't think is serious. Like I think America is crazy. It is not capable of rational thinking. It's not capable of understanding the world in a rational way. It's essentially a rabid dog, and the rest of the world is treating it that way. But NATO is warring with Russia, which is in Europe, and Russia wanted to join NATO. The U.S. kept it out. Yeah, because again, right? Like, Western capital is a rabid dog. Like, it's not capable of it. The people who are operating in the system of capital don't even try to analyze the system of capital. Because if you were to analyze the system of capital, you'd be a Marxist. Right? Like, so you just don't do it. You just keep moving forward on assumptions. Like, the people who are walking around with Milton Friedman saying, oh yeah, we'll invest the money. Like, I think that they thought that they would. Like, I actually think that they were so detached and delusional. Like, they weren't sitting there thinking, yeah, we'll take all the money and hoard it in offshore accounts and sit on it and collapse our economy. That's not how they were thinking about it. I think that they actually did genuinely think that, oh yeah, we'll invest the money, even though they didn't, right? Because they're too stupid. They don't understand how to, right? They are actually economically illiterate. They are stupid, and they have all the power. And and how do we know they're stupid? Because they're not just doing the most obvious thing, which is just give your money to the poor. Right? Just take your money and give it to the poor. You won't even notice it's gone. And instead they're tolerating this. Right? Instead they're putting up with this. Right? Because they're too stupid to recognize, like, oh, we could have just kept this store open. It would have been fine. Right? We could have just like decided, like, oh yeah, I guess we'll make like $3 billion this year instead of $3.2 billion. Right? But they don't care about that. It doesn't matter to them. It's irrelevant. All that matters is line goes up. Because they're dumb. Like, it's so fucking stupid at this point. NATO exists to keep the US in, the Russians out, and the Germans down. Yeah. So exactly though, right? So if NATO ceases to exist, well, what keeps the US in, what keeps the Russians out, and what keeps the Germans down? Right? Like that. So that's why I'm a little bit skeptical about this whole, like, let's get NATO, let's get rid of NATO. Oh, okay. Well, then what keeps Russia out, the U.S. in, and Germany down? Right? Fuck all. Like, fucking nothing. And, like, we've got Italy electing fascists. Like, you think that's not going to happen in Germany? You think that the fascist sentiment doesn't exist in Germany? NATO is a military alliance, not a peace treaty. It exists to siphon off wealth to the transnational military industrial corporate elite. Yep, that's true. Adam, good to see you, Adam. NATO announced their intentions to surge troops to the Russian border. I'm less afraid for Russia and even Ukraine, but than I am for the citizens of London, Paris, Berlin, Washington, and Toronto. Yeah, I mean, like, what the Western world is doing is psychotic. Like, obviously psychotic, right? Like, we don't need to pretend, right? We don't need to sit here and pretend. Like, even if your narrative is big bad Putin invaded with no permission, right? Okay, well, if the responses start dropping nukes, then you're crazy, right? If that's actually your response to it, then you're still nuts, right? So, like, we don't need to pretend, we don't need to be ashamed of saying, like, hey, maybe we should actually not blow up the world. Like, maybe we shouldn't do that. And but again, I think it just flows into this major, overwhelming problem that we are faced up against, which is that our rulers are crazy. Like, they're actually detached from reality. Like, they're actually incapable of acknowledging the existence of reality and the ability for reality to assert itself. Like, this is the number one thing, and I keep circling back about on it. Because maybe one day it'll actually penetrate, and it'll actually, like, get out into the public sphere, and we'll actually have serious conversations about how our leadership, across the board, no exceptions, became detached, deranged sycophants. Like, we're literally worshiping little pieces of paper. We're literally worshiping little numbers on a screen. Like, it's literally what we're doing. That we're actually sitting here saying we're going to drop nuclear bombs and destroy countries and destroy all the land and the water for little bits of paper. Like, it's madness. It's madness. It's madness. France and Russia are nuclear powers, so if something arises in between them, those two can crush it. I mean, crush it how? With nukes? The intent of NATO was to keep Russia out of West Europe, specifically to keep it making deals from Germany or France that lock UK and US out of Eurasia. Okay. Sorry, guys. Give me a second. Okay, Milo. Dude. You cannot just be sitting there whining at me, bud. Like, you genuinely cannot be sitting there whining at me. Okay? Ooh. I'm trying to do this, and I got a little dog, like, staring at me. Whining and whining and whining. Ooh. Maybe this will teach him a bit of a lesson. Wait, would it be so bad if Russia was in, Germany was up, and the USA was out? I mean, that's just fucking nuclear war, right? Like, the Russia's hypersonic defensive weapons may protect them from nukes, but NATO has zero defenses against Russia's hypersonic weapons. US may be the largest military, but Russian is the most advanced. Like, I mean, I don't... Like, this is all fucking crazy talk, right? Like, this is the thing that drives me nuts about this conversation, is people start getting, oh my God, guys, I am so sorry. Oh, wow, I'm being owned by a little dog. Hey, you are being sit. You are being rude. You are being rude. Stop it. Stop it now. Stop it. I'm gonna let you out. Jesus, you need to calm down, dude. Like, holy cow. Like, holy cow, I love you. But Jesus, dude, you need to calm down. Oh, man. Oh, man. It is, like, impossible to do this when you've got a little dog whining at you the entire time. Assuming Europe is going to revert back to fascism if the US imperialists get out doesn't seem reasonable. US capitalists are lowering living standards in Europe and sponsoring far-right parties. Sorry, assuming Europe is going to revert back to fascism, but then also they're lowering living standards in Europe and sponsoring far-right parties? Yeah. Like, so it's going back to fascism. Like, I don't understand your statement, Pittsburgh, because you literally just said it's not going to go back to fascism because it's going back to fascism. Like, Giorgia Meloni is associated with the U.S. Aspen Institute and is a fascist. Like, so I don't really understand your. So because the U.S., who was like overwhelmingly moving towards fascism, is fascist, is supporting fascists, it's not going to go back to fascism. Is Meloni a fascist? I mean, she praises Mussolini. Like, she openly praises Mussolini, says that he was one of the greatest leaders of Italy. She came up in an organization that was created by fascists. Like, she's extremely, like, she seems like a pretty ordinary Christian conservative. So, a fascist. Like, yeah, ordinary Christian conservative, far-right fascist, right? So she signed up for Belt and Road. Yeah, because she's not a total fucking idiot, right? Like, she's not a complete and total moron. Like, she understands where the money is. Has at least openly challenged opposition to propose to recognize Russian referendums. She openly challenged opposition to propose to I don't understand that. Sorry. Oh, okay. That there's fascism there now with U.S. presence. So why do you need the U.S. presence there to prevent Europe from going fascist? Is what I mean. No. Because the U.S. is like the top dog, right? Because fascists only respect the top-down hierarchy, the way that Peterson describes it, right? And whoever has the biggest nuke and the biggest gun is the one you follow, right? Like this is how fascism works. It's might makes right. You bend the knee to the most powerful. You lick the boot of the person who has the most guns. You never fight back. You always say yes, sir. And so if the U.S. is there, then everybody bends the knee to the U.S. And if the U.S. leaves, well, then who are you bending the knee to? Who's the top dog? And because fascists are overwhelmingly psychotic, they will fight for it, right? Like, and you are dealing with an ethos that actually does say that my borders are the best borders. That these lines that we drew in a treaty 400 years ago mean that we're the best, and everybody else is subordinate to us, right? And they're constantly asserting this. They're constantly saying that this is the truth. And so if the United States leaves, well, then who does everybody bend the knee to? Who does everybody actually pay fealty to? Who does everybody actually acknowledge is the person who we all pay homage to? Right? They'll fight. U.S. is trying to wreck EU and Euro and leave basically dependent NATO. Should be the other way around. Eject US from Europe and let EU be a military pact also. Yeah, but my concern would be that, like, they're not going to be able to maintain that military pact is my problem, is my thing with that, right? Like, the Europe doesn't have a long history of working together cohesively. It's not like the Europeans have this big, long, like, 1,000-year reign of peace, right? It's not like Europe is sitting there. Like, it's not like France and England have been buddies this whole time. It's not like Germany and France and Germany and Spain and France and Austria and Hungary and all these guys, right? It's not like they all look at one another as buddies. So it's not like they're like, the United States, if only we got rid of these guys, everything would be better, right? Like, Europe has an enormous history of war with itself. And if one of the only things that keeps Europe from collapsing back into that, if you ask me, is just that the United States is like, don't do that. If you do that, we'll cause you problems. And if the United States isn't there to say, hey, if you do that, we'll cause you problems, well, chances are good that it'll just revert back to what it always does and always has done. Right? This post-World War II moment where Europe is not fighting wars with itself is what is unique. Like, that's what's unique. Like, that the post-World War II period is the aberration. And should the United States cease being the caretaker of Europe in that regard, it'll just start fighting with itself again, like it always did. Yeah, Galen Weston stepped down as CEO. Good to see you, Tinker. CR who, a wrecked Europe and Euro is also very dangerous. UK and France are nuclear, and Germany or Italy or Spain all could be. So it's risk of ejecting USA versus risk of being wrecked by the USA. Yeah. At the end of the day, like, they're not going to eject the USA. Like, that's not going to happen. Politicians are universally cowards. They are not, especially this band. Like, there's no such thing as courage or any kind of like all of them are just going, yes sir, whatever you say sir, yes sir, thank you for the paycheck sir, yes sir, thank you sir. All of them are doing that. So none of them are going to stand up and be like, we need to get rid of the U.S. Like, that's not going to happen, right? If the U.S. leaves, it's because the U.S. decides to leave. Like, that's the more likely thing, is that, like, Donald Trump will get elected and the GOP and these group of sycophants will just be like, fuck this NATO thing, let's get out of this, and they'll leave. Like, that's the more likely situation, because the U.S. will decide that it doesn't want to pay for it anymore. Because, again, little dollar bills matter more than, clean air or anything, right? Russia doesn't want the problem of Western Europe. They would have wanted to do business with them with Nord Stream. Russia doesn't need to be kept out by NATO, and the U.S. doesn't need to be in Europe. If anything, it's NATO that's getting us into World War III and nuclear war now. If you justify NATO by saying it averts war with Europe, we should justify capitalist free trade deals and globalization, because if we don't have it, there'll be war. Sorry, man, I'm really not understanding your point. Like, I'm sorry. If you justify... I'm not saying that I'm justifying NATO. I'm just saying that it is true. Like, Europe will likely go to war with itself without NATO. Like, it's just true. I'm not saying that we should have it or shouldn't have it. I'm just saying that that's the result. That, like, Europe has a huge history of fighting itself. I'm not saying, yay, NATO. I'm just, like... like, NATO's going to fight. Like, the NATO nations will fight. And should we justify capitalist free trade deals and globalization by saying if we don't have it, there'll be war? I mean, I am actually, like, completely pro-trade and completely because in my view, trade is peace. If you're trading with a nation, you're likely not bombing that nation, right? Like, if you're actually saying to the nation, hey, can we get that resource from you, and we'll trade this resource, and we'll go back and forth and trade these resources back and forth, like, you're probably not running a bombing campaign on them, right? Well, like, you're probably not invading them. You're probably not going in there to steal their resources if you're actually trading for that very resource, right? So I am actually, like, extremely pro free trade and trade deals, but there is a way to do it that is beneficial, and you can take a look at how China does it to see how that works out. And then there's ways to do it which are, I mean, demonic, like, which is the way the United States does it, which is to go in, blow everything up, depose leadership, tell them, give us your stuff, right? Or you could go in and actually try and build infrastructure and try to work with them. So we, and I mean, the issue of, like, free trade deals and globalization is more closely tied to the concept of manifest destiny. That's the real problem there. That the United States believes that it can go into any region, demand anything it wants, and kill whoever it wants, and that's fine. Because manifest destiny, you're better off for it. Like, this is actually what they say. This is actually what they talk about. This is actually what the defense is, right? That the people we destroy are better off for being destroyed by us. And they're better off for us enslaving them and throwing them to cobalt mines. They're better off for being treated that way, for sure. Like, so the issue is capitalism itself. It's not the concept of free trade or globalization or any of that. It's just that you've got these capitalists who genuinely believe that they have a manifest destiny to spread liberal democracy. And they can do it however they want because the ends justify the means. And that a destroyed nation that is a liberal democracy is better than a rich communist nation. Like that's the ethos and that's the mindset. So to me the comparison doesn't work. It's not a fair comparison to make. Like, I'm not trying to justify the existence of NATO by saying it averts war. I am saying that if NATO doesn't exist, there will be war. Like, that's if NATO ceases to exist, there will be war. And why will there be war? Because all of these nations are constantly at war with one another before NATO's existence. They want to go to war with one another, and it's the same mindset, right? It's the same mindset. We're the best. We're the best. That's it. That's all it is. It's just a bunch of dumb monkeys who are too stupid to realize that not fighting is better. Going, we're the best. That's it. I mean, trade deals that outsource jobs in a race to the bottom, undercutting union jobs, giving up sovereignty to corporate courts like the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I'm going to let you finish writing that. CR Hugh, Meloni told opposition either propose that Russia's referendums are valid for a new border or keep arming Ukraine, but you can't sit on the fence and wait for war results. If USA leaves and UK breaks up, France is the only one with nuclear weapons. So that's the obvious power broker. Sweden is also heavily armed, and Italy and Germany and the Netherlands have industries. Europe was pretty much at peace 1814 to 1914. China is powerful enough to force them into line, especially with Russia there, actually to invade conventionally all the way to Paris, like Alexander III. Like, there's just a lot of... Like, this whole thing can go tits up. Like, that's the part about this conversation that just drives me fucking crazy. And I see this all the time, that, like, you see, like, the pro-Ukrainian sycophants, right? That nobody wants to believe that the whole thing can just go completely sideways and tits up. Like, there's this sort of odd conversation going on where we can control this. We can control this, yeah. But, like, it's not true. Like, the whole thing can just go fucking sideways and everybody can just start nuking each other. Like, I find this whole conversation to be like, we gotta stop this crazy shit. Like, we gotta. I don't know how to. Like, it's weird to theory craft about how power will be separated and how things will be broken apart when, literally we can unleash, like, hell dimensions. Like, we can open up the Hellgate and just demons can start pouring through. Like, mushroom clouds can sweep throughout the land. We can poison our atmosphere and our water. Like, we can do it. Like, we can. And to sort of have my hope is that people will just kind of come to their senses about some of this stuff. My hope is that people will just start to recognize, like, oh shit, like, we got to stop funneling weapons into these places. Like, we got to stop this shit. We actually need, what we need to be doing, like, if you want to talk to me about this, like, the thing that I want to see is I want to see a denuclearization treaty like we had under fucking Reagan. Like, this is what's so crazy about this. Yeah, it's like fucking Warhammer 2K, and we're all just supposed to acknowledge like it's not. Like, or we're all supposed to pretend like it's not. Like, it's fucking wild. It's fucking wild that we had a denuclear proliferation treaty under Reagan. Under fucking Ronald Reagan. That we're just no longer abiding by. All these guys that jerk off to Reagan. Well, Reagan was pro-nuclear disarmament. He wanted nukes to be, he wanted us to disarm. Right? We were disarming. We were getting rid of nuclear proliferation. And then I think it was like Bush Bush started that shit back up. Fucking fascist. Definitely, like, how do you know there's no justice in the world? George W. Bush didn't go to The Hague. That's how you know. Okay, Pittsburgh. Oh man, okay. My dog lied down. Oh man. Just need to take a moment, man. I feel like my brain is just like, just give me a second. Like, holy shit. Having a little dog like barking at you, it's just ridiculous. While you're trying to actually like mentally come to terms with what it is to be living in this fucking ridiculous world. Like, it's a ridiculous world that we live in, right? And like the truth, guys, I'm sitting here and while I'm talking to you about this, I am thinking to myself, like, and let's acknowledge it. Let's be honest. Why are we talking about this? Like, why are we talking about this? Why are you talking about this to me? Right? Like, why are you talking to me about World War III? Like, I didn't start talking about that shit. You guys started talking to me about it. And I don't mind. I'm fine with that. But let's be honest about why we're talking about it. And it's because we're all scared. It's because we're all scared. I'm scared as shit about it. I've kind of gotten to a place where I'm a little bit like, well, what are you going to do? Like, I'm doing everything I can. Like, I'm working a full-time job. Also doing this. Hoping that this can become my full-time job. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, hit the bells, hit the whistles. If you have $1 jangling around in that pocket, maybe think about donating it. I've got a Patreon. You can get in the Discord, right? So that when I get chased off these platforms, you'll actually know how to find me. Also, if I can get 400 people donating $5 a piece, right? I can actually do this full time. And that's sort of my hope, is that I can do this full time. So please consider joining the Patreon. If you're only donating $1, maybe make it $2. Big thanks to my Patreons. I really do appreciate it. But like, the reason we're talking about this, and the reason we're talking about war, and the reason we're discussing this is because we're trying to find catharsis. We're trying to find a way and somewhere to put this anxiety, somewhere to put this manic madness of what it is to live in the world, of what it is to live with this looming threat, and what it is to exist in a delusional empire that is in collapse. And I know for myself, doing the live stream is very useful because it means that I don't spread this out to everyone around me, right? Like that's the benefit that I find for myself, is that by coming here into this space and by having these conversations and by talking about it here in this time, it means that I don't do it to my loved ones and I don't do it to people out in the world, right? I can sound like a crazy person on YouTube, right? So that I don't sound like a crazy person on the subway, right? And I think that one of the things that we really should acknowledge while we're talking about this is that I don't think it really matters. Like, let's be really real here. Let's be really real here. Like, we can share each other's opinions and share each other's ideas, but it doesn't matter who's right. Right? Like, it does like I don't know if I'm right. You don't know if you're right. And it doesn't matter, because what we're actually doing, if we were honest, and I want to be honest, because that's what I feel like this whole thing is about, is what we're actually doing is talking about what we're afraid of. We're actually talking about how scared we are and how terrifying it is to exist in this kind of looming stasis. Oh, come on. Not hell, limbo. There's the word. Limbo. This torturous limbo space where we all have the sense that some kind of event is going to happen. That we feel the tension. That we feel the anxiety. That there is like a looming demon face just behind our head, so that we can't see it. No matter what we do and no matter where we turn, we can't see the demon. And we know that the demon will act and will exert itself into reality. And so all of us are trying to convince those that deny the existence of the demon that the demon does exist. And it's gotten so obvious that those who are in denial are look like flat earthers now. They look crazy. They look insane. They look insane. And that raises the tension, and it heightens the gaslighting and raises the anxiety. And I don't quite know why I'm talking about this right now, but maybe it is just to remind myself that, you know, I'm not really arguing with you, Pittsburgh dude, and I'm not really arguing with you, CR Hugh, and I don't really care. You know, I don't really care that, like, the United States leaves NATO. NATO leaves this thing. Then NATO falls into war. Maybe NATO works it out. All this kind of stuff. But what this conversation is about to me, and I suspect what it's actually about for you, is how fucking scared we are. That I don't think the ruling class is rational. I think that the leadership of all nations in the capitalist world are exclusively self-interested sycophants, that they genuinely do not care about any idea of a vision for their country. They don't actually care about the concept of their country. They don't care about the concept of community, loyalty, any of that kind of stuff. And they tell you, right? Thatcher outright said there is no society. Petersonian individualists literally are telling you that they are abandoning you, that there is no sense of community or sense of any kind of connection or loyalty. That the whole thing is falling apart, and it looks to me like they're happy about it. And so under these circumstances, when you have a ruling class that's completely detached, that is completely disinterested in the fate of its own country and the fate of their own people, who do not care about their own people. Macron does not care at all about the French people. Justin Trudeau doesn't give a shit about the Canadian people. Biden doesn't give a fuck about Americans. To them, these are just propaganda slogans that they use to maintain their own wealth, power, prestige. That's all it is. Period. Full stop. There's no concept whatsoever. They don't even give a shit about the idea of legacy. They don't care at all. And these are the guys with the nukes. These are the guys with the military force. These are the guys that are going around the world. And every decision that they're making at every level, at every position, is how do I make money for myself? And nothing else. Nothing else. And that to me is the heart of the terror. Because we are the ones that are trying to make sense of it. They are not trying to make sense of it. They don't care to make sense of it. They don't give a shit about making sense of it. We're the ones doing the analysis. We're the ones doing the analysis. We're the ones looking at it and trying to forge reality from chaos. We're the ones that are doing that. They don't care. So our theories about it are almost completely irrelevant. Because it's just complete and total fucking chaos. And it's only a matter of time until we just get psychopaths in there that are just like, we've got, like fucking Nixon. Nixon was talking about dropping nukes on the Vietnamese. He had to get talked down by Kissinger of all fucking people. What, you think if like Matt Gaetz takes power? You think if Marjorie Taylor Greene takes power? Right? You think if DeSantis takes power, they're going to talk each other down? Like, it's just total fucking madness. Which is why, again, to bring it back, I am in favor of it. I'm in complete and total favor of it. Which isn't to dismiss what you're saying. Just to loop back around on that. Because I kind of feel like, I don't want you guys to feel like I am dismissing what you're saying. Because I think these are the concerns that you're having. I just want us to all temper everything we're saying with like, we're trying to rationalize something that I don't think has a rational base. That we're trying to make sense of something that is, by its very nature, senseless. Purgatory. Yeah, the reason we're talking about this because the capitalist death cult put us in this situation, yeah? Like and subscribe or you're a lib. Absolutely. Yeah, Ukraine is very dangerous, especially if the actual fanatical Nazis set foot in Crimea, where they said they would ethnic cleanse it. I will be very, very, like, I am far more concerned about nuclear conflagration. That to me is what I'm more concerned about. Like, legitimately, I don't think NATO and Europe and America has the military capacity to be able to push into Crimea. I just don't think they have the capability of doing so. You know? Like, the United States military force is way too spread thin throughout the world. Europe doesn't really have a military force capable of getting in there and causing any damage. Nobody across the Western world is like volunteering for this shit. And most Americans have been completely destroyed to the point where they're not suitable. So like, the idea that the Americans and the Europeans are the Europeaners, the idea that the Europeans are going to be able to field a military force that's actually going to be able to push into the Donbass region, let alone Crimea, like, I just don't think that's serious. I just don't think that's serious. Like, I'm much more concerned about a nuclear conflagration. Yeah, I don't even know how to sort it out, the actual reality of it. I think the first good step, and I've really noticed this, the first really strong step is to stop believing liars. That once someone or an organization shows you that they lie, that they are willing to omit facts, that they are willing to, and omitting facts is a big one. Then you should disregard them completely. And it should be full scale. Like, never under any circumstances give any organization of any sort any benefit of any doubt. That the only thing that should bring them back into your good graces at all is if they admit it and acknowledge it and then change their tune. Because then you know it wasn't a lie, it was a mistake. Right? So, but if that's the litmus, if that's the level, right? If that's what you're willing to do, then that basically means you're cutting out every government in the West, all government information, all CIA sources, which is the entire media, right? All the churches, certainly, right? Almost the entire culture, right? Like and that is what you're doing. You're cutting out almost the entire culture, which is why YouTube people are gaining prominence, right? Really, when you think about it, like, really pause and actually think about how fucking ridiculous it is that there is even a single YouTube celebrity or a single YouTube commentator that has any traction at all. Like, really think about how fucking wild that actually is. forget about just like my small group. Like forget about this small channel that I've got going on that hopefully builds into something bigger. But like Hassan's a good example. Like, what? Who the fuck cares what this guy thinks? Like, for real. Like, who the fuck gives any shits whatsoever what this guy thinks? Who the fuck cares what I think? But the reality is that like, and you can see how bad the conversation's gotten because of the rise of comedians as people that were supposed to be taken seriously as commentators. People like Jon Stewart, people like Dave Chappelle, people like Joe Rogan, that were actually like so desperate as a people for anyone in the conversation to actually have any kind of rational conversation about reality, that we're giving the floor to nightclub comedians. People who should be just saying dick jokes. Like, I genuinely think that in this moment we are giving more cultural authority to someone like Dave Chappelle than we did to fucking William Shakespeare. Like, that's how bad it's gotten. That the society and the culture is so bereft of any credibility whatsoever that we're actually turning to people on fucking YouTube. Entire massive 100-year-old organizations. News organizations that have been around since the dawning of television itself, since the inception of radio itself, have now lost all credibility and are getting trounced by YouTubers. That's where it is. That's where it is. And the beating heart of it is that they can't stop bullshitting us. They can't stop bullshitting us. They don't know how to not. They don't know how to not. Because their entire ethos begins and ends with money for me good. Money for me good. And if there's someone above you who is making a lot of money that you can make money off of by just subserviating yourself to them. So if you can be if you're a billionaire and you want to bribe a bunch of millionaires to lie to the public, there's a lot of good money in that. You can be Tucker Carlson, right? So money for me good. This guy wants me to say this, I say this. But people are seeing through it. Not enough people, but a lot. And it begins with the understanding that once you can tell that someone's lying to you, and my suggestion to everybody is to get a lot more acute at it. To assume the person is lying. To begin with the assumption. Don't walk into the conversation thinking, oh, I'm going to have a good faith conversation with this person. That's done. Like, I've been operating that way for a long time. Where's your blanket, dude? Oh, there it is. Like, I never go into a conversation thinking the person I'm having a conversation with is operating in good faith. Like, never. Like, I assume that everyone is being paid or is grifting us. Like, we are a society of grifters. That the people who do the best in this society are the people who grift the best. That's the competency that Peterson talks about. But only the US, UK, Poland, and Canada would do that. Everyone else in Europe is not that crazy to set Nazis in motion to Crimea. I mean, it's straight up like the US's playbook, though. Right? Like, the difference is that in other nations, it's not the Nazis. It's just other far-right groups who are, like, Nazi adjacent. They're just, like, a different flavor of Nazi. Right? Like, and the only reason why it's considered a scandal at all in the United States is because it's Nazis. Because people don't understand what other cultures' Nazis look like. They don't know what these organizations are. They don't know, like, Americans are, like, ruthlessly illiterate. And so but to me, that's what makes what makes the Ukraine moment so scary for the rest of the world is that the US and Europe, the NATO nations, are willing to even fund like neo-Nazis now. Like I've said this before, and I think it's absolutely true, that the rest of the world kind of looked at what America did throughout the Middle East and gave them a little bit of the credit, like a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. That this idea that like Bush is just kind of an idiot and that they're all going in there with this kind of like dorpy, dorpity dorp, like the narrative of being a well-meaning giant, right? That even a well-meaning giant can do a lot of destruction and damage. And so I feel like there was this narrative throughout the 90s and 2000s where the rest of the world was looking at what America was doing and still following this narrative of like, oh, okay, they're just bumbling, right? They're just doing stupid shit because they don't know what they're doing and they're so big and lumbering and dumb that they're doing all this damage. Well, that doesn't mean that we hate them, right? It just means that they're kind of dumb. But to see what they've done in Ukraine, like, that's not Americans being dumb. Like, that's not NATO being dumb. That's NATO purposefully deciding to purposefully fund and support neo-Nazi groups and a neo-Nazi agenda in order to foment a war against someone who otherwise was attempting to be an ally. Right? Like, that's what's so crazy about Ukraine. And which is why I think the normies, why I think normal people can't really even get into the conversation. Because the truth of what we're doing in Ukraine is so horrifying. The truth of how we're operating in Ukraine is so overwhelmingly horrifying that I think it would shut people down. Like, I think normies and normal people who don't actually attempt to grapple with this stuff in the serious way that I think we do, or at least in the honest way that we do, I genuinely think it would shut people down. That they wouldn't be able to continue operating in the world around them, understanding what we are doing and what we do. And so they just don't. They just don't even try. Yeah, Reagan had a legit fear of nuclear war, and also every nuclear power was very afraid of biological warfare, which was cheaper, and lesser powers could pursue it easier. God, biological warfare is just disgusting. My scenario of Russia bombing NATO cities is not a World War III scenario. It's avoiding or starting and immediately ending World War III. I mean, I feel like it would be like a defining characteristic of World War III to have all these cities in ash. Bush family are absolute monsters. Their whole legacy must be repudiated and erased yet. J.W. Bush repudiated nuclear disarmament, told Ukraine it would join NATO when only 20% of Ukraine population, Nazis in the West, yet wanted that. No, for sure he's evil. Like, his whole family is just predicated. Petersonian individualists, yes, indeed, if that's a thing. Yeah, it is. Like, Peterson has a big following. Whenever he says things, like, he gets published in the National Post. We can't just hand wave this man away. Like, certainly not in Canada. Like, Jordan Peterson has a gigantic following. He is listened to seriously, and he is the one who is espousing this mantra of individualism that all of them espouse. Like, it's all the same thing, and it's all coming from him. And it's not unique to Peterson, but he's the, like, icon of it. Like, he's the one saying it, and then the people who listen to him say it back, right? And it's insane. Like, it's an insane ideology, but it exists and it has to be taken seriously. because chances are extremely good that the next ruling class, which is the conservatives, are going to come in, and a huge contingent of them are like this. They literally will cut all funding and tell you to get a job. Like that's straight up what's coming. Like straight up. And to pretend otherwise, like, and just because no one is saying Petersonian individualist doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like when Peterson said that Alberta should secede if the Liberals try to take over resources, it was published. Like, if I say shit, it's not published. Yeah, the mass media is literally lying with the last 20 years of history. Every detail is fraud. Ukraine provoked this mess with U.S. encouragement. Yeah, Mir Shemeyer's the guy. Mir Shemeyer's the guy. You can go find John Mearsheimer and he'll just lay it out for you. And he doesn't hit the Nazi point so much. Like, he really backs off on that, because I think that he doesn't care to get into the weeds about that, because I think that he sees that he doesn't need to make his larger point, right? Like, his larger point is that it's Ukraine and the United States that are the ones that are responsible for this, and that he doesn't need to really get too deep into the Azov Battalion and all this kind of stuff, even though it's absolutely true. Did you ever see The Dead Zone with Christopher Walken? Good movie. Walken plays a guy who can see the future and sees that a crazy guy will become president who will start a nuclear war. I mean, Petersonian should not be a thing. It's not like he invented his own ideology, he's the icon of it. Like, it's just the truth. Like, he's the icon. That anytime you get talking with these guys, right, you can basically just say, so what do you think about Peterson? And then they'll tell you all about how much they love him. So I don't know why we're pretending. Like, and Shapiro is the same way, by the way. Like, Shapiro's got a kooky little creepy following of incels, right? Just like little Nazi incels that are basically like Shapirites. And like, the next generation of academics, should they exist, they will call this Petersonian. They will call this Shapirite. Like, it's these guys have massive followings, and the ideology is coming from somewhere, and it's being promulgated, and it's being put forward by someone, right? Like, I feel like this is a very leftist thing to want to pretend like Peterson isn't as influential as he actually is. And I hate to break it to you guys, he actually is. Like, he actually is. And a big reason why he is because he's got an in with corporate power who keeps spreading him around. Like, that it's the same path as like someone like Adolf Hitler, right? That like the right and the corporate ownership and corporate owners like what they say. Because what they say is the rich are rich because they're super smart. Right? That's what they're saying. That the rich are rich because they're super smart. That they're better than you. That they work harder than you. And if you want to be rich like them, then you need to work just as hard, or just admit that you're not as good. Right? So it's like a little fascist ideology that's not rooted in reality at all, because the baseline of what determines where a person ends up is not competency or any of this garbage. It's how positioned you were in the moment of your birth. That matters far more than anything else, by a lot. Like, it's not close. It's not like it's like this the moment of your birth and then how competent you are. It's literally like the moment of your birth and then like maybe 100,000 miles down through the center of the core of the earth, and then you can start ranking like competency and all that kind of stuff. Like, if you're born in the middle of the Sahara Desert, underneath one tree, like, chances are real good that you're not going to become like the King of England. Like, it's just not how it's going to work. Chances are good that the person who becomes the King of England will be the Prince of England, right? Because he's the best positioned for it. And this sort of manic, crazed, lunatic idea of hyper-individualism just denies the reality of existence itself. That's what's so frustrating about it, and what's so frustrating to talk about the hyper-individualists is that they just want to pretend as though I am here because I'm the best and my energy matters the most. They just want to deny like the obvious realities of basic shit. Like, forget about even getting into any kind of theoretical, like theologian talk about it, or like the nature of reality and any of that. Like, the truth is that you're just randomly generated and you don't know why you are where you are and you're just there. Deal with it. And if it turns out you had an abusive father who beat the shit out of you every day, or if it turns out that you had an uncle that kidnapped you, or if it turns out that you had a mom who drank her ass off while she had you, or if it turns out that you had loving parents who had $1 million, or if it turns out that your dad was a billionaire owner of a giant grocery empire, right? You didn't have anything to do with any of that. You're just fucking dealing with it, and having some asshole show up and say, you just need to work harder and competency is what is really what matters. It's just the most asinine bullshit I've ever heard in my fucking life. And I see it every fucking day. I see it every fucking day. And now the corporatists are trying to find other voices who are willing to sell themselves out this way. Who are willing to go down the same path as Peterson and Shapiro and these other, and Crowder and these other sycophants, Matt Walsh, right? These total psychos who are completely willing to deny the truth of reality, who are completely willing to deny the truth of their position, and just sell themselves out completely to say, no, I'm here because I'm the best. Certainly not because my mom and dad are billionaires. But to pretend like Peterson's not important in that conversation, it sucks. Like, I'm not happy about it. I'm not sitting here being like, hooray, but it's true. Like, it's true. Of course, Macron and Trudeau don't care, but historically, we did have a bureaucracy and a diplomatic corps that pushed France and Canada to behave in certain ways diplomatically. I just think all that's gone. I just think it's all gone. Like, we don't actually care to know anything about our enemies. Like, we don't care to know anything about Russia. We don't care to know anything. Like, literally nothing. We don't care to know at all. Like, we want to be illiterate and dumb. That's what we want. And there's no analysis at all. John, what I meant was that I don't know how to come to peace with the inevitable war with China. I know everyone is lying, but the fact that it will happen has got me all fucked up. Yeah, there's a real good one. There's a real good comment. That's a real good comment, Cotton. And a good, like, good for you for saying it out loud, you know? Good for you for saying it out loud and admitting it. Because that by itself does a lot, you know? That by itself does a lot. Just saying it out loud and admitting that, like, America wants this war. China's ready for the war. When will the war happen? We don't know. We don't know. But very, very clearly, America is positioning itself to engage in a war with China. That's very foolish. It's a very stupid thing to do. But they're going to do it anyway. And my hope, because one of the things that's been happening on this channel as I've been talking about China and as I've been learning about China is that I've been falling in love with China, you know? I watch those China walk-around videos, and China's beautiful. It's an absolutely beautiful country with beautiful people who are trying their best and who have the good fortune of being in a country that is actually trying to solve its problems. I think that to me is the most beautiful part about China. That when you stop looking at it as if it's an enemy, and you start looking at it like it's just a group of people, you know, so you look at it for what it is, just a group of people who are trying to make sense of what the world is and trying to live in it, and just trying to get through like the rest of us. The most beautiful thing about it is to see a country that's actually trying to solve its problems. And to know that that's possible. And to know that it's possible for a group of people, it's possible for humans to come together and to actually attempt to solve their problems. That if we get stuck in the Western lens, then it's easy to conclude that, oh, well, capitalism is human nature and this is just what it's going to be, and so it's all chaos, so every man for themselves. Well, if you look anywhere else, especially China, you realize that's bullshit. Pretty easily, it's bullshit. Because here's a group of people who are solving problems, obviously solving problems. Like, obviously. Like, you've got to be completely dim-witted to think otherwise. And my concern when it comes to war with China is that many of the places that I find myself falling in love with and I think that are beautiful are going to be destroyed. That's my big concern. That's my big concern. These glorious, glittering cities and these wonderful, powerful infrastructure projects and all this kind of stuff, it'll all just get destroyed. So that a bunch of fucking monkeys can be like, yeah, we're the best. We got our paper. But I sort of hope, and I do actually have faith, that the Chinese are not going to take it lying down. That the Chinese, they're not engaging, like they're not engaging in like a world war, you know? Like China's not engaging in military adventurism the way that America is. That if it came to blows, if it came to war between China and America, I think America would have like a bit, its whole thing is always shock and awe. And then it sort of just exerts authority for long periods of time. Well, China doesn't give a shit about its shock and awe. So it's not going to sit, it's not going to be like, whoa, like that's not how China's going to roll. China knows what's coming. Like it's a smart people. It's a 4,000-year-old civilization. And it knows how to do war. And the people who are leading it have their feet planted in reality. And the populace have their feet planted in reality. And I think if America starts a war with China, it's going to immediately regret it. Like the regret is going to be immediate. And China's not going to China's not going to let up. I think that's the thing that Americans are being very foolish about. Like, China wants to play ball in peace. Like, it wants to do that. It wants to trade, and it wants to have good partnerships, and it wants to make alliances. And how do we know? Because it's all it's ever done. But if China goes to war, like, China will reconfigure its entire economy in the space of 5 years with a 5-year plan that likely the Chinese already have drawn up and are already ready to implement. And in the space of 5 years, it will reconfigure its entire economy to ram a spear into the heart of the American nation. It'll for sure do this. And hopefully more rational voices and more rational minds, like Kissinger did with Nixon, will prevail. And the Americans will recognize that going to war with China will be considered one of the worst military blunders in the history of the fucking world. Don't go to war with China. What are you doing? That's so fucking stupid. But that's America for you. I think the thing for all of us to do is just get involved in anti-war movements now and start being open and honest that a war with China is going to be the worst possible thing for us. All it's going to do is drive the rest of the nations of the world towards China, because going to war with China is insane. And only an insane nation would do it. Like, it's self-destructive, it's wasteful, it's stupid, it's pointless, it's unprovoked, completely unprovoked. It's basically just taking the mask all the way off. That, for those of us who know what's going on in Ukraine, the mask's already all the way off. But for normies living under the deluded lie of the empire, the mask is still on, right? You're still changing your Facebook profile setting to the blue and yellow flag and still pretending like you give a shit about Ukraine, even though you're not going there. Like, you're not fucking going to Ukraine. Like, shut up about it. You don't care. It's all just virtue signaling. And that by itself has shaken a lot of the world's nations out of any kind of torpor that they had. That by itself, like, the Ukraine war is, in my view, already widely regarded, but will become widely regarded as one of those seminal key linchpin moments when America basically shot itself in the ass. Because it basically showed the rest of the world how completely untrustworthy it was. And then if it goes to war with China, like, the entire rest of the world is not going to be like, the Americans are rational and we should definitely work with them. And it'll just continue this isolation. This isolation. That's what I would be concerned about. That no nation can survive by itself. Like, Adam Smith said something along those lines. No nation can survive by itself. Like, you need to trade. You need to share resources around the world. But that's exactly what's going to happen to us, is that we're going to become isolated. Because no one's going to want to trade with us. No one's going to want to work with us. We're crazy. Like, we're nuts. We're psychopaths. Like, it's really obvious. No, it's not even that. It's not even that we're psychopaths. Like, I feel like if we were psychopaths, they could still do business, because they could appeal to us like we were psychopaths. It is that we are inconsistent, and we don't do what we say we're going to do. That's really what it is. That I do think that, like, the other nations of the world, if we were psychopaths, they'd still be like, okay, there's the psychopaths, like, they're psychos, obviously. It's that we say we're going to go this way and we go that way. And the rest of the world just like, look, we can't do business this way. We need some consistency. Like, we need to know what you're going to do. And we just refuse to operate that way. And at this point, it's got to be called a refusal. Like, I don't know what the rest of the world can do to tell us. Not that we're listening. Like, not that we're listening or that we give a shit. Yeah, we have psychopaths right now. Yeah, DeSantis for sure. Absurdist era, absolutely. Yeah, Florida is currently building the legal framework for a genocide. Yes, it is. The troll age, internet trolls like Trump take power. Elon takes Medvedev. Greta trolls Andrew Tate into revealing where he is and gets arrested. Yeah. Sebastian Gorka wore his grandfather's Hungarian Nazi collaborationist medal to Trump's inauguration. Fucking brutal. Step 1. Label legally the taking and sharing of information about being queer as child abuse. Yeah. Step 2, lower the requirements to enact capital punishment with just an 8-4 jury decision. Step 3, make the penalty for child abuse the death penalty. Yep, that's exactly what they're doing. That is exactly what they're doing. Who says true. Jimmy Dore is the best comedian commentators. He actually reads the text of real quotes on screen, and then he does understand the implications and explains them. Yeah. Radio and TV are absolute nonsense, for sure. On purpose. On purpose. I haven't watched any in a year now. My radio is off when it was on all the time before that. Well, and anytime, one of the things that legacy media is doing and corporate media is doing, and they're doing it pretty well, is just filling the airways with junk. Like just total, just asinine junk. Like, there's a fellow, the only time I hear radio anymore is when I walk into my local convenience store. And the fellow that owns the place, he always has the radio on. And it's tuned to the CBC. That's what makes this whole conversation about the CBC so funny to me, is that it's just always junk. They're never discussing anything serious. It's never anything interesting. They're never actually talking to anybody that actually is informing anybody of anything that's serious. It's always just like, here's Vanessa Harworth with how to plant your to make your best garden. Like it's never serious information about anything, because these organizations no longer exist to inform anybody of anything. Because if they did exist to inform people of anything, the very first thing that they would be informing people of is, hey, here's the structure of your economic system. Hey, here's how your government works. Like, this is one of the things that I keep bringing up when it comes to, like, our education system. How you know that our education system is completely fraudulent. Nobody learned anything about our education system growing up. That they taught us all kinds of bullshit. Like we read 1984 so that fucking Polyev could hold it and pretend like it mattered in Parliament. But we don't actually know anything about how our government works. We don't know anything about our economic system. We don't know how to file taxes. Like, that's all done on purpose. Like, how do you miss that? Right? If you actually care about, like, we need to make a country of patriots who cherish and love the country they live in, well, easy way to do it. Real simple. Wouldn't be difficult. You've already got the infrastructure. You got kids sitting in these chairs 8 hours a day, living in little prisons, getting so mad about it they're shooting people about it now. Don't maybe teach them something. Yeah, the Disney LGBTQ thing is going to get DeSantis pissed. Yeah. Florida is nominally fascist. Absolutely. Yeah, good faith convo doesn't exist west of the Ottawa River in the last 20 years. Lobster Man for the mummy issues and Tate for the daddy issues. The conservatives are not a class. They are the same ruling class as liberals. Yeah. I agree, Ben. So if that's out of context, I apologize. Yeah, normies can't handle the red pill on Ukraine. They couldn't handle Vietnam or Cambodia or Nicaragua truth either, yeah. Peterson is at least better than Shapiro. Like, Peterson did actually watch Mearsheimer and raise the alarm that nuclear war is actually possible due to mindless escalation. Yeah. Like, a lot of what Peterson does is just try to find ways to make headlines. Like, that's just the truth of Jordan Peterson. Like, as long as it doesn't interfere with the mantra of individualism, right? Like, that's his only line. He's willing to say lots of things, and will say things that I actually agree with. Like, that, and that's what makes Peterson such an interesting figure, is that he is willing to actually say things that are rational, right? But it's all predicated on this foundation of irrationality, which is the hyper-individualism, right? That he's raising the alarm for nuclear war is actually possible due to mindless escalation, but that's nuclear war, and it's these individualists, and these individuals are the ones that are responsible for that. And that it's Trudeau. I can't believe we've got Trudeau in power during this period of time when we need the blah blah blah. And so the thing to do is to get rid of him and put in another one, right? Because another individual will solve the problem, right? Don't actually have a serious, genuine conversation about the nature of the system, and that it's the system that's generating these guys, right? Peterson must loom large in Ontario, but in the Maritimes we listen to coastal islander voices a lot, like Tulsi Gabbard or Mia Motley or Claire Daly. Sure, yeah, there's always somebody. And like, Peterson does loom large in Ontario. He's from Ontario. Or he lives in Ontario. He's from Alberta initially. Oh, I can't really reckon with the suicidality nationally with Taiwan. Their heads of state know better. They know Taiwan will be leveled. They know this. Do they? Like, do they? Like, I keep asking that question. Do they? Like, do they know these things? Like, I'm always blown away with how these guys end up being like how dumb these guys actually are. You know? Turn off Toronto broadcasts and you'll run into Peterson on YouTube, but people don't bring him up on the street or even on TikTok. I see him on TikTok. Love the Peterson son voice. We need cartoons of this. Peterson reminds me of Hitler, capable of impressive rational debate and panel performances, but engaged in solo hate rants when his amygdala goes off. I don't think he's very capable of impressive rational debate. The issue is that Peterson only appears rational because he only really debates people who are willing to stay within the framework, right? Like, Peterson only debates other people who agree that capitalism is the bee's knees. Like, that's it. And the one time he didn't, which was against Zizek, he ended up looking like a moron. Because he is. Like, as long as you're willing to stay here and stay within the framework, right, of capitalism is the best system in the world and nobody will ever disagree with that. And as long as you're going to engage him in, like, identity politics, and as long as you're going to engage him in like, feminism and all this kind of stuff, he appears to have impressive rational debate because this small border of debate is so vapid in the first place, right? There's the whole conversation is empty and vapid. And so he comes in and makes big blustering statements or has like a stat or a figure or something that seems to bowl people over because they're all vapid and empty in the first place. And if he were to actually have a debate with someone like, let's say, Richard Wolff, right, he would get fucking train wrecked. It wouldn't be close. He would get completely rolled over. But and which is why Peterson dodges him. Why he won't debate Wolff. Because he knows it. Because Wolff doesn't engage in the debate, and he doesn't acknowledge the framework. Right? Like, Peterson's PR team is good. Like, the people who are around Peterson and the billionaires that fund Peterson know what they're doing. Like, it's not like Jordan Peterson is walking around as just like one guy. It's not like he's like me, right? He's not just like putting himself out there and being like, oh, we need to talk about this kind of thing, and then he's getting grabbed onto, right? Like, he's got people, he's got advertisers. Like, he's a propagandist. His job is to be a propagandist. That's what he does. He has a shtick, and he knows what his shtick is. And he understands that when you get off the shtick, like, he knows how to retreat out of the conversations. You can see him retreat out of conversations. You can watch him do it. He knows what the framework is. He understands that he can't actually have a conversation outside of that framework. The ruling class, his owners, attempted to push him in the direction of being able to have a debate outside of the framework, and he got completely fucking rolled by a teddy bear. Like, Zizek's a fucking teddy bear that essentially operates for the benefit of capital. But Peterson got completely bowled over. Like, not close. Made to look like a fool. Which is why it's never happened again. And why he's, like, retreated into this. Now they've got him going around being like, well, the problem with climate is that, it's everything. And so he's now basically just working for the fossil fuel industry. Acting as though we can't pay attention to evidence because, like, fundamentally the position that Peterson takes is that we can't solve problems because they're difficult. So we shouldn't even bother trying. It's just embarrassing. Like, I didn't realize we were so weak as a people. McGenocide. China makes all your shit. They own a ton of U.S. debt. Yeah. Yeah, let's go to war with them. Yeah. China now reminds me of 1930s FDR USA, struggling with legacy of brutal problems, but optimistic and diligent about solving those. Just wants to be left to do it. Yeah. I think that's right. Like, I've said it over and over again. I'd rather be part of a country that was trying to solve its problems than, and failing, than be a part of a country that was not trying to solve its problems at all. Like, we've got to try, and we're just not trying. And I've got it on the screen. I've had it here for quite some time. Canada's quiet decline, right? The living standards of OECD countries. Canada's steadily declining, and the projection is that it's just going to continue to declining. The low productivity of Canadian companies threatens our living standards. And why is the productivity low? Because we take all our productive capacity and we put it in Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island. That's what we do. Like, we're not reinvesting it. We're not building a country. We're not doing any of that kind of stuff. We're not trying to improve the quality of life. We're not trying to create education systems. We're not trying to do any of that. We're literally taking all of our money and giving it to billionaires who buy pedophiles with it. Like, that's what we do. Reservation ran radios are nice. Community members come in and play. No information. Of course, it's ran by chiefs and council. But is he who you're talking about in this case, Fiddleford? But is he interesting or just an opportunist? Peterson? Is that who you're talking about there? I mean, he's an opportunist, obviously. Like, he rises to prominence by lying about the bill that the Liberals are putting forward, right? That the bill, I forget what it was, which bill it was, but it was like Bill C-11 or something, and the bill basically just made it so that it included trans people in a list of and language that included trans people. And then Peterson lied, and it was a bald-faced lie that nobody in the media sphere called him out on. So that tells you everything you need to know about the validity of the media. That he said that it was forcing him to change his language, which was not what the law was doing at all. Like, at all. And so it created a moral panic, a hysteria based on nothing. No journalist anywhere actually pointed out that he was lying, that it wasn't true. And because they're all working together. Like, it's all theater. And Peterson's job in all of this was to create that hysteria and create that moral panic to sell his fucking book. And to get a whole bunch of people attached to this idea that you just need to sell yourself to capitalists more. True freedom. Yeah, we briefly went about how the government works in 4th grade. We fucked off right after that. Yeah, I wasn't serious. It's like, go vote, right? Command Genius, how you doing? Oof, Command Genius. I've been doing research on the Jewish question. My political views have been flip-flopping. 1 hour I'm far left, the other I'm far right. You might want to clarify that, bud. Like, let's get more specific with that, Command Genius, because I know what your background is. So I'm going to be nice with you about this. Like, what is it that you're struggling with about that? Let's work through that together, because I think I could help you land in where I think you should. And yeah, let's crack that open a little bit more, bud. I'm happy to do it. No judgment whatsoever, bud. Because things are tough, and I know what's going on around you. If the New York Yankees are running the world badly and maliciously, don't hate the Yankees. Ask why a fucking baseball team rules the world. Zionist banksters didn't just used to buy up every political and diplomat and judge and church. It's neoliberalism that gave them that power, and of course they can't handle it. Well, hold on. There's a lot of assumptions going on here. Look, the whole concept of the quote-unquote Jewish question, right? Yeah, and I think that's part of it, Command Genius, so that's why I don't have any judgment for you, right? Like, the whole concept that the Jews run something, right? Like, that the Jews run X, or the Jews run Y, or the Jews run Z, or so the Jews run the bank, or the Jews, like, the truth is that there are Jews that do run parts of X, right? Also, Cotton's got good advice for you, bud, for sure. But let's stick to the question, right? That what fascists will do, and in the case of the Jews, it's not just the Jews. They'll do this to trans people, black people, Muslims, any minority group. What they will do is they will point at that minority group that is part of whatever business, like be it banks, be it oh, for God's sakes, Hollywood is a good one these days. What was Kanye, right? And they will say, aha, you see, the Jew is the problem. And it's a way to deflect away from the structure of the banking system itself. That the actual problem is the economic system, is the banking system. And so by going after a minority group, in this case the Jews, you externalize the issue, you externalize the problem, you turn it into a type of individualism, you turn it into an ethnic problem. That, oh, this would all be so much better if it wasn't for the Jews in this particular case. But you find pretty quickly that that's not what's going on. That the problem is the economic system. And that it's just a way for fascists to deflect analysis and blame off of the thing that is the problem, which is the structural issue of the banking system and how it unevenly distributes power, and onto a small minority group that is involved in that system, in this case, the Jews. And this is like a fascist tactic. This is like fascism 101. This is straight up what they do. That, and it's got a lot of benefits for a fascist. Right? Benefit number one, it deflects attention away from the actual issue. So it's a form of gaslighting, right? It deflects attention and analysis away from what actually does need to be analyzed and what does actually need to be paid attention to, which is the economic structures and the economic systems themselves. And then benefit number two, it allows fascists to pick on weak groups, which is what fascists actually want to do. They're very upfront about that. A big part of what fascism is all about is bullying weak people. That's a big part of it. And so it's got like a double thing that it gets to do. But for us who are trying to figure out, like, if you're actually being genuine, sitting there going like, oh, I don't know about the Jewish question, all that kind of stuff, right? And you're young, so I can see why you would. Well, I would say that you are being taken in by people who are willing to omit from the conversation that it's not just the Jews that are involved in the banking system. The Jews don't own the banks. The Jews don't own Hollywood. There just so happens to be also Jews that are also involved in the bank, that are also involved, right? That it would be just as incoherent to say the Irish own the banks or the Italians own the banks. It would be just as incoherent to say that the British own the banks. And it would achieve just the same goal if you bought into it, which is to deflect away from any kind of critical analysis about the structure of the banking system itself. So, I hope that was helpful, because that's the truth. That fascists want you to kill minority groups and not pay attention to the systems that are empowering the fascists themselves. French, good to see you, bud. What do you think the end game is vis-a-vis China's aspirations and U.S. debt? War, loan forgiveness and consolation? I mean, Americans are not well known for their forgiveness. And they're not well known for their reconciliation. So I'm pretty sure that's off the table. Look, what I see happening, if I had to guess, if somebody said, "Here's some money, take the bet. Here's a gun to your head, John. Be a prophet. Just be a prophet." Okay, here's me being a prophet. America's going to go to war with China at some point, probably when the nuclear submarines are finished with the Oxus deal. So sometime around 2030. Right? China is going to be ready. America's forces are going to be largely depleted because of its constant, perpetual, never-ending warfare. The internal struggles in America are also going to have weakened America considerably. Its inability to recruit, the lack of loyalty that exists in America, the fact that the military is considered despicable, and it should be considered despicable, the political fracturing that's happening all throughout America. But America's going to try to regain its lost glory and its lost prestige through war, as all dying empires do. That it's not going to be a rational act. It's just going to be a rabid dog lashing out because it doesn't know what else to do. And China's going to be ready. They're not going to roll over. They're not defenseless. They're not like Iraq or Afghanistan or Ukraine or Syria or Somalia or Yemen or the Palestinians or Libya. Right? They're not like these places. China's got the second largest military, is constantly growing it. They know exactly what America is and exactly what America's goal is. They know what America's plan is because America told them. And they're ready and they're prepared. And the major difference when that war starts is that America's going to run out of bullets and China won't. And when the Americans realize what they've stepped into, they'll try to reconfigure their economy into a war economy, and China will do it faster, better, more efficient. And if America doesn't step down from it and realize how bad they fucked the dog, China's going to take over Southeast Asia. So you're talking about like the Philippines, you're talking about those islands, right? They're gonna roll over all of these places. They're going to roll shit into Taiwan to make a point of it. I don't think the Taiwanese are going to put up a fight. And if America starts that war, China's not going to stop. Like that's the thing. Is that America's going to start that war and then China's just going to continue expanding. And it will expand to the South China Sea. there'll be this enormous moment between China and Australia. The Australians are terrified of all of this. They're talking about it constantly. Like, they are deeply concerned about what's going to happen should America decide to pull the trigger on this. Like, because China's not going to send boats over to America and start bombing America. America does a fine job of blowing itself up. The Chinese don't need to help. It's the Australians that are sitting there going like, what the fuck is going to happen? And there's even many Australians that are like, we should join with the Chinese. We shouldn't even fight this fight. We should just join the Chinese. But I don't see any path outside of straight up nuclear war, which is always possible with these psychopaths. I don't see any path where the Americans win. Their productive capacity's in the toilet. China's got 4 times the population. The Chinese citizenry are ready, are going to be more incentivized to actually fight, given that's an existential threat. China's also going to have the backing of the vast majority of the population of the world. Because America's invasions have gotten tedious. The war weariness has set in. People are exhausted with America. They are ready to get away from these fucking psychos. And the truth is that America's going to lose that war because that's all America does. America doesn't know how to win a war. Don't think it's won a war since World War II, which the Soviets won for them. Like, and then China's just going to decide what it wants to do. And if you ask me, given that China's a much more rational nation, like, it actually uses principles, it actually has thoughts, it does what it says it's going to do, right? Like, it reaches conclusions logically and tries to enact those logical conclusions. So once China takes over the South China Sea and pushes America out of it, I think it'll consolidate power there, and it'll just start blowing up American boats as they attempt to approach. I don't think, I mean, who's to say? Will China go over to America? That's the big question. My feeling is that China would pursue a path of isolation, and that China thinks about things in a much more long-term way than the United States. China's not, like, America thinks about maybe 4 months ahead. Maybe. China thinks in, like, well, 5-year plans in the first place, then the 100-year plan. So it thinks big, long-term scales. And so I wouldn't be too surprised if its entire strategy was, after it pushed out American bases in the South China Sea and took over the South China Sea and took over, like, the islands, right? That its strategy from then on would basically be one of border protection, blowing up American boats as they attempt to come in. The big question is Japan, if you ask me. Like, China's been doing flyovers of Japan. Like, straight up. China's been doing flyovers of Japan. And so maybe their strategy with Japan is to take it over. And I mean, South Korea, same story. And then I think from then on, the strategy is to just starve America. Is to just start making trade deals and start making protection racket deals with the nations of the world that basically says, if you want to trade with China and if you want to be in with China, you got to abandon the United States. And given that America will show it's incapable of winning a war, because they're not going to win a war against China. Like, they're just not going to win that war. They can't beat the Iraqis. Like, they can't beat the Afghanis. They can't beat the Vietnamese. What, you think they're going to win against China? And America will become isolated. And most importantly, I think this is the most important part of this conversation, is that I think the internal pressures of the American empire are going to get the better of it. I don't think America is going to be able to reconcile its differences with itself. That the bipartisanship and the hackery and the shittiness, basically, of America is going to overwhelm it, and the nation's going to fall apart. I think it balkanizes. I think that places like Texas, California, have every reason to want to be separate from the federal government. I think that the federal government of the United States has lost its credibility. And even more than losing its credibility, it's lost its ability to rationally respond to the needs of the public. And that a lost war against a peer competitor is going to fuel sentiment of is going to fuel an anti-American sentiment within the borders of America. Like, if you're a losing team, then you need to build a new team. And I think a lot of Americans are going to start looking at each other and start being like, why are we doing this? What's the point of America? Like, seems like all it's doing is blowing up shit in our borders and poisoning our water and then taxing us. And as America collapses in and around itself, China will consolidate. It'll consolidate relationships with its neighbors, with Russia, with India. The Belt and Road Initiative will grow and become more solidified. The goal of Chinese security will be to ensure the safety of the Belt and Road Initiative. It will secure continued diplomatic relations and ties with Saudi Arabia and Iran, which is an enormous, enormous, enormous story. One of the largest stories of maybe the last 20 years that nobody talks about and nobody even mentions. That Saudi Arabia and Iran made a peace deal with the help of China. It's a fucking incredible story. Absolutely incredible. Completely changes the face of diplomacy in the world. The planetary diplomatic structure of the world is different now because of that. And nobody even mentions it. Like, I see it maybe mentioned once in a week by some guy. So you'll see like a 30-second clip where a guy will be like, this happened, then this happened, and look, this happened, and then this happened, and and Iran and Saudi Arabia made a peace deal, and then this happened, and then this happened, right? Nobody wants to actually admit that, like, oh, fuck. Saudi Arabia and Iran, traditional enemies who have been in a kind of Cold War state with one another for hundreds of years, have decided to put that all aside with the help of Chinese diplomacy in order to build trade negotiations and trade deals together and extend the Belt and Road Initiative together. Oh. And as China starts building up Africa, which more and more African nations are literally openly talking about, like openly talking about it, just straight up being like, the deals that we've been making with America for the last 200 years have been bullshit, and China's giving us a better deal. Straight up talking that way. Like, so as American military force begins to fall to the wayside, as it fails to be able to show that it's capable of accomplishing anything, and as the internal struggles of America begin to overwhelm it, China will continue to consolidate, will continue to build power, and become the beating heart of the next empire. And we'll see how that goes, obviously. I don't want to make any predictions about whether or not China will rule with benevolence or whatever. But certainly better than what the Americans have to offer, essentially a slave state, genocidal maniac nation of psychopaths, whose idea of diplomacy is rolling into your nation, blowing up everything, stealing your resources, and then telling you you're better off for it. So, the thing that scares me the most in that whole narrative, of course, is that I think the military-industrial complex itself begins to break apart. That people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates begin erecting private militaries, and they've already begun this process. And like Elon Musk is building a little town for himself. You've got Cop City. You've got the military-industrial complex building its own infrastructure for itself, preparing for these collapses. And everything will just become kind of insular. And you see these breakdowns happening, incidentally, in the prison system. Many of the prisons that exist throughout America are no longer in control. That it's the prisoners themselves that are running the prisons. And that the wardens and the guards and all this kind of stuff exist on a tier as like observers, right? But they don't actually have control anymore because the prisoners themselves have taken control. And unless the guards want to start just executing people, which they might, right? That's on the table. It's completely possible. But like the people who are actually running the place is the gangs inside the prisons. And that's going to spread out, and that's how the society itself is going to become. And you're going to end up with like Musk with like a private military force. And Bezos with like a private military force. And local law enforcement will become like private military forces. And there will be no American military force. There will be no federal military force. Or if there is a federal military force, it'll be diminished in its power significantly. And that America as a federal body will recede dramatically. And the empire will collapse. And this is like, I don't think this is controversial at all. Empires collapse. Like, empires collapse. It's the most common thing. Right? Like, this is I get a little weird feeling in my gut when I start talking this way. Because I worry that people are hearing me and being like, wow, this guy's, what a kooky, oh man, he's talking about all kinds of wild stuff about what's going to happen in the future. It's like, yeah, not really. Like, this is how it goes. This is literally the history of every empire that's ever existed. It's just now we've got high-tech bullshit and nukes. But it's the same story, right? And what saves the American empire? How can the American empire save itself at this point? I mean, it could be saved, but it would require like a massive, like you would need to see a cultural revolution. You would need to see entire groups of people, millions of people, literally millions of people, rising up against what's going on and making a statement of a cultural change, saying we cannot operate this way anymore. We cannot act this way anymore. But I'm more or less of the opinion that even if that did happen, the momentum of the death cult is such that it'll result in a civil war. It'll result in an internal conflagration of which during the time, China will just continue its ascension. And I think the scariest thing for Westerners is that China is beginning to match the economic force of America now, and China is just now beginning its ascension. Right? Like, perhaps you could make the argument that it was Mao and all of that. but really the ascension is happening within the last 20 years. And if this is where China is now as it's beginning its ascension, well, what's its peak look like? I don't think we here in the West have the imaginative capacity for it. And moreover, I don't think we here in the West want to imagine that it's the Chinese that are building the future. That if we try to imagine it as white people, then we end up with like Star Trek and all that kind of shit. But I think Westerners generally refuse to imagine a world run by the Chinese. For the obvious reasons. So French, that was my big thing. That's what's on my mind when I think about what I expect to see happen. And that's without even layering on the reality of climate change. Which, that's going to be an interesting moment for the entire world. Because America is not going to deal with climate change well. The Western world is not going to deal with climate change very well at all. Expect hyper-militarism, like outright fascism, straight up. Expect huge, huge turmoil, massive tent cities, massive infrastructure issues, massive consolidation of wealth underneath people like Bezos, Gates, the same people, right? Just consolidating more assets, consolidating more wealth, consolidating more for themselves, while poverty spreads and while people flee the disasters, the water levels coming up, the poisoning of water supplies. Meanwhile, China already has a plan. They're literally building empty cities so that as people need to retreat, they'll have a place to go. We haven't even begun that process. So, layered into everything I've just said is not only are we going to decline culturally with an internal cultural civil war likely, not only are we going to balkanize, not only are we going to do that, we're also completely unprepared for climate change. Like zero preparation whatsoever. And our competitors, China, have built full-sized cities. Cities the size of New York. Cities the size of Paris. That are just mainly empty. Sitting there just waiting for people to go move to them. So when the water levels go up and people need to leave, well, they've got a place to go. And China won't dick around with it. Like in America, you'll have to find, if such a city existed in America, you'd have to find your way to it. And they'd just be like, yeah, get there, I guess. Well, China will just like literally, their military will just roll in with buses and just be like, hey, does anybody need a new place to live? Come with us. And they'll just roll people over to it. Yeah, no charge, whatever. Welcome to fucking China. Get out. Here's your new life. Like, everything that takes us a year to do, China will get done in a day. Like, it will take us years to get any of this shit done, and China will just already be done with it. Because they've already planned it, they already see it coming, they already know they needed a plan, they've already got the infrastructure in place, and when it happens, they'll just open to the page of what to do when it happens, and they'll just do the thing. And they won't fuck around with it. They won't be like, well, there's a billionaire that wants to fuck all that. We got a flood here. We got 1 million people who need a place to live. We got 1 million empty. We got 1 million empty apartments. Get those people in those apartments. Send the buses. Says so right here. Do it. And they will. And we'll have like Democrats and Republicans debating whether or not those people earned it. Like, it's a fucking disaster, dude. Like, it's a fucking disaster. And it's obvious, it's right in front of us. And everybody walking around living in the world today still goes to work. And many of them are just deluded about it. Like, I've literally had people tell me that believing in climate change is a religion. Like, we're gonna get blindsided by this shit. We're gonna get completely rolled over. And we're not gonna recover. Like, that's the big thing to remember in all of this. Like, I feel like I am like the homeless guy wearing the big sign that says the end is nigh. Because the end is nigh. We're going to get completely blindsided by climate change. We're going to get completely blindsided by the isolation that comes from our militarism and our military adventurism, that the rest of the world accurately depicts us as Nazis and psychopaths, because that's what we are. That we have no plan. We don't care about planning. That the people who are going to be the most struck down by our lack of planning are the people who we don't really consider people in the first place, which is the poor, i.e. the vast majority of America. You'll literally just be told, get a job, right? Like, essentially, people will point at drowning people from yachts and laugh at them for not having a yacht, is more or less the culture that we have. There's no compassion, there's no empathy, there's no plan. Certainly no plan. Like, certainly no plan. And so the goal for everybody, and the goal for all of us, should just be make a plan. Stop making fun of these preppers. Stop making fun of all these guys. Make a fucking plan. And it's okay if your plan is just to accept death. Like, that's fine. Like, I'm not saying that as a nihilist, by the way. I'm not saying that as like a dismissive kind of person. Like, we all die, right? Like, my feeling is that a lot of this shit is going to start setting in when I'm 60. You know? Like, a lot of this shit is going to start setting in when I'm 60. And there's no plan. Like, there's no old age pension for me. Like, that's not coming. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we got like crazed nut jobs taking over. Our society is like, there's no support. Like, the people that we're putting in positions of power are actively working to privatize our systems and are actively working to undercut us. Actively. You can see it. It's right in front of you. So the idea that, like, if your plan is do your best and then, you know, try to die comfortably, I suppose, that's fine. Right? It is. It's completely fine. You shouldn't be afraid of it. You shouldn't be afraid of it. You should be more afraid of living a boring life. You should be more afraid of living a life of mediocrity, a life of complacency, a life that doesn't try to explore, takes no risks, where you don't learn anything, you don't know anything, you don't try to know anything, you don't see anything or do anything. That's what you should be more afraid of. Because the truth is that we all die. This is another truth that I think these Petersonians are so fucking full of shit. Like, they seem to think there's a finish line and that there's a goal screen, and that for some reason they think that if you have $1 million you win or something. Like, there's going to be a plaque, right? They think that their tombstone is like a plaque or something that people will look at and be like, wow, he was a good man who lived a good life. Fuck all that. That's stupid. And it's obviously stupid. We all die. Like, we all die, right? Like, you are born, you're randomly generated in the world, you have a series of experiences, and then those experiences cease to exist. And that's it. And the experiences you have should not be tainted by the opinion of some fucking psychopath who thinks that competency is working in a cubicle your whole fucking life. So even though all of this is very overwhelming and daunting and scary and terrifying, and even though we don't know what's going to happen, really, and we don't know how our society is going to respond to it, although history has shown us that we're going to respond negatively, obviously. We're ruled by psychopaths who are going to try to take advantage of it and abandon us while doing it. I mean, just fucking like the Louisiana floods, the New Orleans floods, like COVID itself. Like, At what point do we think we are capable of responding rationally to crisis? And so my advice is just try to have a good fucking time. Try to have a good fucking time. Try to get out to a nightclub. Try to get out to a bar. Try to pick up girls. Make yourself look like a fucking idiot. Try to be a moron. If you're a woman listening to this and a man approaches you, give him a shot. Like, you are not here to work for capitalists and then fucking die. You're not here to individualize your individualism. You know? You're a beam of light that has a type of consciousness. The eyes and ears and nose and mouth of the universe. That we are all just the universe talking to one another, trying to make sense of the things that we see. And instead of coming together and making any kind of plan for how to make this place nice for all of us, we're worshiping little pieces of paper, numbers on a screen. And whoever has the most amount of numbers is the best. Which is really going to matter when you die. That got really existential. Got really all about it, eh? Fabala, good to see you, by the way. I didn't say hello. Oh, John, about getting old. I have this weird feeling about repaying my student loans. If I did it, I can't get by. If I did, I won't be able to afford a house anyway. If I didn't do it, or I don't care, can't get a house. The jig is up. There's no good motivating reasons to play along with repaying the debt. Yeah. Yeah. I live in Canada, so I declared bankruptcy. I just straight up was just like, nah. This is more or less, this is like, this is how dumb the ruling class is, right? Like, as all these jobs dry up, as ChatGPT takes over, and as they lay off, like we're talking about millions of people who are out of work. Like, do they just think that we're just going to go off and die? Like, people will band up. Like, we will become marauding bands. Like, it's what will happen. And you can see it. You can see it in the younger generation. They're already doing it. Coastal people all have a climate change plan, and a lot of it involves aligning with China and Russia and other land powers to crush the inland elites who drowned us. We will sink the yachts and gas the bunkers. There won't be any property in the Western Sea pirate uncivilization. Yeah, the age of piracy, actually. I haven't even talked about that. Like, it for sure is going to create a new age of piracy. Like, literal piracy. It's going to be pretty wild. And, like, during periods of piracy where like, you'd have, like, an American naval person, an American naval, a British naval officer. He would just disappear. He would just take the boat and disappear. And he and his crew would just become pirates. And then they would just come home after a period of time, and they would just be like, oh yeah, we just got blown out to sea or something. They would just come up with some bullshit excuse while they were basically doing piracy. A lot of the pirates during the pirate period were naval officers. Straight up, like, captains given a ship, and they just went and just left. And I suspect a similar thing will happen. that the internal infrastructure and the internal credibility of these of the American military will just cease to have the authority it had, and people will just take these boats and do what they want. And there will be entire crews of people that'll just be like, yeah, let's just fucking go. Like, why shouldn't we? Oh, the Admiral won't like that. Who gives a fuck what the Admiral thinks? I had to beat my fiance over the head to do so. Best decision ever. It's a struggle for a bit, but don't kill yourselves over your debt. Yeah. Yeah, there are a ton of job listings that have 1 year of ChatGPT usage is mandatory. It's only been out a few months. I saw a video sent by a right-winger saying it's because of blacks. Yikes. Oh yeah, dude. Like, when shit gets real, like, people are just going to start shooting. Like, just cuz. Like, they're already shooting just cuz. Like, it's going to get wild. Like, literally wild. Like, giving an ape an automatic rifle wild. Yeah, grinning. So use ChatGPT to write a fake resume. All right, guys. We've reached the end. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.